Welcome to the Valley of the Sun, just southwest of the city of Phoenix, Arizona. This beautiful oval has played host to some great racing battles, both open wheel and NASCAR, since 1988. Hi, everybody. Mike Joy, Larry McReynolds, Darrell Waltrip with you, ready for a great 312 miles that will go by almost in the blink of an eye.
You know, Mike, sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy, but the nighttime is the right time. And I tell you, I'm really pulling for Mark Martin tonight. You know, he needs a win. He hadn't won since '05. He almost won this race last year. He's on the pole. I hope he can do it.
Larry, we're going to race from sun to shade and from day to night, and that's going to be a lot to keep up with in a very short time.
Yeah, this is one of the shortest races that we run, 312 laps, 312 miles, and it's going to go through a couple of major transitions. Right now, we already have shade over turn 1 and 2, 3 and 4 is in the sunlight. 3 and 4 will get that shade, it'll make a change, and then we get into the nighttime, which is the right time. That's when these mines on pit road, the crew chiefs, they've got to be on their game, and of course, nobody's better at doing that than Chad Knaus. That's the reason they've won the last 3 races.
And you might think it's noisy out here. Folks, the cars are just idling.
All right, they will roll off and form up the starting grid, and from back to front it looks like this, beginning with Tony Raines, Bobby Labonte, and John Andretti. Elliott Sadler, Sterling Marlin was fast enough to time into the show. Casey Mears, Scott Riggs made it in. He didn't in Texas. Breed Sorensen, Sam Hornish, Dave Blaney, Kevin Harvick continuing to struggle just a bit back there. Waltrip and Logano. Ryan Newman had a shot for the pole. Not sure what happened. He ended up way back in row number 15. Joe Nemechek, always a good time trialer there in row 11. Montoya and Stremme. Scott Speed, one of the quickest of the go-or-go homers in qualifying. And we move up into the top 10. There's Jimmy Johnson trying for 4 in a row here in Phoenix. Kurt Busch lines up in row number 2. His younger brother Kyle there with Mark Martin on the front row. Mark Martin, the pole winner and quick in practice.
Let's see if we can get a hold of Kurt here real quick. Hey, Kurt, it's Darrell Waltrip. You got a copy, buddy? Hey, DW, or Kurt, it's DW. You got a copy, buddy?
Hey, DW dude, what's up?
That's the question, my man. How's that car running tonight? Is that engine under the hood going to pull you up out of these corners and win this thing?
We like to hope so. We've done our homework and we've done the best that we can to use last year's setup and then what we've learned this year with the Miller Lite Dodge team. And right now, starting third, got a bunch of fast guys around us. Just got to wait for nightfall before we pounce on them.
All right, my friend, good luck. Put a whooping on them like you did at Atlanta.
Hey, amen to that, brother.
Larry, how about our FedEx understanding the race?
Well, we've had 4 spring races here at Phoenix NASCAR on Fox. The first caution, roughly about lap 22, is when we get that first time the yellow flag waves. The longest green flag run, about 77 laps average, and that's right at a fuel run. 2008, we had 79 laps at the end, and the last caution around lap 244. Only once in those 4 races have we had a caution with less than 70 laps to go in 2007.
Ready to race in the desert. Make it a great race day with a perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager. This race is the Subway Fresh Fit 500. That is 500 kilometers or 312 turns around this 1-mile racetrack.
Pit road speed 45 miles per hour. The pit window for Sunoco race fuel 70 to 80 laps.
Mark Martin on pole. He loved the way his car worked in practice.
DW, we love racing under the lights. Saturday night's all right for fighting. Reach up there and pull those belts tight. One more time.
All right, Mr. Martin, hold it down, hold it down. Wait on the flagman. Wait on the flagman. Green flag's out. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys.
Look at the run that Kyle Busch and that 18 car is getting on the high side, but it looks like Mark Martin will lead lap 1.
You know, last night Kyle did the same thing in the nationwide race. He jumped to the outside and took everybody by surprise and was able to grab the lead right on the start.
Gordon looking for third underneath Kurt Busch, thought better of it. Jeff Gordon in the 24 as the Busch brothers dueled for second. Right behind them, side by side for fifth. Here comes Stewart on the inside.
That little bit of smoke we saw in turn 1 out of the 18 car, that's just a little brake lockup. Brakes are a little cold. They'll be fine. No problem.
You know, I think so much has been said about Hendrick Motorsports, but I think Darrell said this in the pre-race. That's a guy to watch, I think, tonight is Tony Stewart, that 14 car.
He's just getting better and better every week. He's getting more and more comfortable. It wouldn't surprise me to see him win tonight. Even next week at Talladega, I think he's going to be strong.
And I don't think anyone here has more laps on this racetrack in more different types of race cars than Tony Stewart. Biffle and Earnhardt battling for 14th. Biffle, a winner last night here in the nationwide race.
He had an awesome car last night, Mike. Biffle did. And, man, he was able to hold guys off even when he had old tires and they had new ones.
I tell you what, watching and listening to Dale Earnhardt Jr. yesterday in final practice, he seemed about as happy as he has been with his car in a long time in a final practice session.
Well, Larry, I think when you come to a track where you know you can run good, that you like, having a good attitude has a lot to do with how you run, and he's got a good attitude this week.
Juan Pablo Montoya on the outside of Casey Kane and the 17 of Matt Kenseth. That battle is for 17th.
You're just going to see that outside line. When you get off a 2 over there and you're up high, you just get a lot of speed off the corner and you shut the door on the guy on the bottom. It's a shorter route around the bottom, but it's faster around the top.
Look at that glare. Well, the drivers are seeing it, but just as you are from the onboard camera.
We talked about the crew chiefs having to make changes to the race car. These drivers will have to make changes. Some of them are wearing sunglasses. Some have a lot of tape on the windshield. You can almost see it on the inside of the windshield of the 42 car Montoya's.
Jimmy Johnson was saying you've got to find a place down on the wall to get you a mark so that you know where you are getting into that corner before you're braking and entering that turn. And he didn't say put a mark on the wall. He said find a place on the wall.
Racing for 17th position here as Mark Martin has led every lap. A tire rub on Dale Jr. on the left front of his Chevy.
And that may have been from that tight racing with Greg Biffle in the 16 car. He's now pulled in front of Greg Biffle in the 16. That's put Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 14th spot.
Ryan Newman had trouble pulling away from the starting grid. The car wouldn't fire and needed a push. Chris Devoto.
That's right, Mike. Trouble for the 39 team before the race even started. If you were watching the pre-race, you saw the crew members run down the front stretch trying to give that car a push. They were able to get it fired. The starter was hung, but they fear should he stall, they will not be able to get it fired again with the starter.
And boy, Larry, that just bothers me. These guys, remember, I think it was California. They had to come in before the race ever started, had a transponder that was not on the car, broke the rear wing when they were in the pits, and now it's not good to start the race this way.
I think one thing we need to make clear, we had a very unusual schedule here. This was a 2-day show. We had all of the practice, 2 practice sessions totaling 3.5 hours before qualifying. They didn't impound the cars. The teams could work on the cars, but they have not been on the track since qualifying yesterday afternoon.
Ryan Newman had been a threat for the pole, but was disappointed and lined up for this race 30th.
And honestly, the only concern on the starter would be if we have a red flag where they had to shut the engine off and then had to refire.
Or if you stalled the engine coming out of the pit, you know, that's a problem. But, you know, remember, I think it was yesterday, Jeff Gordon had a starter issue when practice started. So if I'm got a Hendrick engine right now and say, hey, what's going on with these starters? It's not a big deal, Larry. You need it.
You need it. It's just along for the ride.
6th place battle, David Rudiman in the 00, Brian Vickers in the 83, and they're about a second behind Tony Stewart.
You know, David Ruderman in that 0-0 car, I think we all keep wondering, okay, boy, he got a little bit loose in the middle of 3 and 4 that time. Brian Vickers tucked up behind him. When is this team going to falter? But they're just not really faltering. You see right there, 11th in the Sprint Cup Series points after 7 races.
Matt Yoakum.
And when you talk to David Ruderman, he'll tell you one of the biggest things about this year is just his confidence. So much better than last year. In fact, at this place, he said comparing this car to the car he had a year ago, it's 50 times better. When you talk to his team, they say that's one of the bigger differences, plus just the chemistry between himself and his new crew chief in 2009. And it shows in the racetrack week in, week out.
And, you know, David, they've nicknamed him the franchise. And he is. The better he does, the better Michael Waltrip Racing will do. There's no question about that. They even have T-shirts that they're selling now at the souvenir rig with the franchise on it.
Riding with Denny Hamlin, he is the 10th place car. Mark Martin has led every one of the 12 laps so far in Phoenix.
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 on Fox is sponsored by Subway, home of the famous $5 footlong. Subway, race hard, eat fresh. By Ask.com, where do NASCAR fans get answers? Ask.com, the official search engine of NASCAR. By the all-new 09 F-150. It's not just a new truck, it's a new F-150. And by Sprint, NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile. It'll change the way you experience the race.
Mark Martin started on pole, and he's trying to run away from the field. There he is with a 1.6 second lead over Kurt Busch. Kyle Busch has dropped from 2nd to 5th in just 3 laps. We'll update him in a moment. Here's a question from Ask.com, official search engine of NASCAR. Why do we have military flyovers at the NASCAR races? Get the answer now at Ask.com and enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge for a chance to win a trip to Talladega.
And Mike, it is a little noisy up here. There's no question about that. And I'm sure the fans at home hear all that noise. But remember, we got 35,000 horses going by here every lap.
Bobby Labonte right now running in the 36th position, only about 9 or 10 seconds in front of leader Mark Martin.
Darrell, look at this lead that Mark Martin has built up over Kurt Busch, now at about 1.7 seconds.
But I've been watching this 2-car of Kurt Busch. He's making his 300th career start here tonight. Since he cleared his brother Kyle, he's actually been just a little quicker than Mark Martin.
And a couple of cars behind him that are pretty darn quick too is the 12 and the 24. They're all pretty close together, but the 12 and the 24 look like they got it going on too.
Tell you who doesn't have it going on, though. Mike mentioned just a second ago is Kyle Busch in that 18 car. Chris Devoto was telling us that he started complaining about lap 10. His car wouldn't turn in the middle of the corner. He was turning the steering wheel. The front wheels were just sliding.
He pitted last night in the Nationwide race because he thought he had a right front tire going down. That's how bad his car was. He got 2 laps down. He got them back, but there wasn't anything wrong with the car.
And you know, honestly, Mike, he was not that good. Talking about Kyle Busch in the practices yesterday, I think he just really laid down a fast qualifying run.
You know why he struggles on tracks like this? You know why? You got to use brakes. He doesn't like to use brakes. I mean, I know that his teammates say they look at his telemetry. They're hard on brake. He's rolling in the corner. You got to use a lot of brake here, and it just doesn't fit his driving style.
Meanwhile, his former teammate Tony Stewart is charging hard. He has all but caught Jeff Gordon. Here's Steve Burns.
Mike, the early report from Tony Stewart. Decent on entry, loose the rest of the way through, but that's not to be unexpected. Darien Grubb said they wanted this car to be free early as a way of chasing this racetrack, Dick Berggren.
Well, that's exactly the strategy Jeff Gordon and his crew chief Steve Letarte have adopted as well. They intended to start car number 24 a bit loose, and Gordon has said it is real loose coming off, but as the sun goes down, that could work to their advantage. They anticipate the track tightening the car up.
And there's no question, right now the cars are probably a lot tighter in turn 1 and 2 than they are in turn 3 and 4 because of the sun being in 3 and 4.
Larry, let me ask you a question. How big of a no-brainer would this be if you were Tony Stewart? I'm going to give you half of this racing operation. And oh, by the way, I'm going to get one of the best crew chief engineers that Hendrick has to be your crew chief. And while I'm at it, I'm going to give you Hendrick engines and Hendrick chassis. Do you think you'll be able to be competitive with that?
I think he knew the answer the minute they asked him that.
I think so, too.
I think that's the reason he didn't hesitate with the answer. There's his crew chief right there, Darien Grubb.
There he is.
Mark Martin taking no prisoners. He has led every lap. from Kurt Busch, Jeff Gordon, and Tony Stewart. Welcome back to Phoenix. Mark Martin still leading by 1.2 seconds over Kurt Busch. The number 11 FedEx Office Toyota sporting a special paint scheme tonight in support of the March of Dimes and the annual March for Babies walks. Additionally, Denny Hamlin wearing a special helmet designed by 11-year-old Sonny Van Buskirk of Windsor Locks, Connecticut. Though Sonny's birth weight was just 3 pounds, March of Dimes research has resulted in him leading a healthy life. To participating in helping babies be born healthy, visit marchforbabies.org or FedExRacing.com.
And you know, Mike, normally we talk about the tear-offs on the outside of the windshield that the crews pull off. I noticed Denny Hamlin from his end car there, he has a tear-off piece of tape. You can see it flopping around up here, right here. That's to get that off when the sun goes down, so he can reach up and tear a piece off himself.
Hamlin in 8th place, 8 seconds off the lead. Make that 7th now as he passes Kyle Busch, his teammate.
Say if there's a car that would love to see a caution here pretty quickly, it would be Kyle Busch in that 18 car. He started on the outside of the front row. Now he's moved back to the 8th spot. I think he's going to fall out of the top 10 here pretty quickly.
This is just so reminiscent of what happened to him last night here, Larry. He took off like a rocket and then just faded for a while and had trouble. Recovered late, but not the night I thought he might have.
You know, a car that laid down a great qualifying run yesterday. They run a very limited schedule. They're housed out of Denver, Colorado. Regan Smith in his 78 car. He was our Rookie of the Year last year, driving for Furniture Row Motorsports. He started in the 9th position, and he's still in the top 10. I just feel like this is one of the teams that throttled back, running a limited schedule, built a brand new car for here. They run the Hendrick engines, and obviously they're showing that qualifying run wasn't a fluke.
Oh, I said all along he was a sleeper.
He has never, he has never had a DNF in his Sprint Cup Series career.
What's that? Did not fluff the pillows on that Denver mattress?
Something like that.
Not a good day so far for 3/4 of Richard Childress Racing, including Clint Boyer. He's only lost 2 positions on the racetrack, but Matt, he really seems to be fighting that race car.
You beat him through the center there, but he gets that.
And you can hear Mike Dillon, his spotter, trying to tell Clint what some other drivers who were showing a lot faster time on the racetrack, the different lines they're using. The biggest complaint, he has the car just so free. And then he added to his crew chief, Shane Wilson, I think we also have a warped brake rotor, so issues early on for the man 4th in points.
That's what you're talking about right there, Mike. If you see Kevin Harvick and Casey Mears, in fact, they're not that far out in front of leader Mark Martin as we've been caution-free for 38 laps.
And it's easy to warp a rotor here. You go down this fairly long front straightaway, the brakes cool down quite a bit. And when you slam them on and build heat in that rotor real fast, sometimes it will warp it.
Martin Truex Jr. in the number 1 was great in practice, had a disappointing qualifying run, started this race 26th, but I believe he's our biggest mover. He's moved up 12 spots into 14th.
Yeah, he definitely was one of the best cars in both those practice sessions. It just didn't come to fruition for him during that qualifying run.
Passes Greg Biffle, moves to 13th. Let's get to 3rd place here.
Yeah, it looks like Jeff Gordon is starting to fade just a tad here, Larry. I looked at his lap times. He's fallen off a little bit compared to Tony Stewart and the guys in front of him. Tony is now all over the back of him. I believe Jeff's car has given up a little on him at this point in the run.
And you can see Tony Stewart in the 14 car get a run on the high side through 1 and 2. He's going to get hemmed in behind Elliott Sadler in the 19 car, but Tony's going to squeeze in there.
Threads the needle.
You know, that's because 2 things. He knows Elliott will move up and give him room on the outside, and he knows Jeff Gordon leading the points right now. He's not going to put a fender to him this early in a race.
So Stewart moves to 3rd, 3 seconds behind our race leader.
I said this early in the race.
Mark Martin has now led 3 times as many laps as he led in the first 7 races of this season.
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 on Fox is sponsored by Budweiser. Reach for the perfect balance of flavor and refreshment. Budweiser, the great American lager.
48 laps complete, and Mark Martin's lead over Kurt Busch has shrunk to 3/4 of a second as Martin deals with race traffic. He's got to open up that hole in traffic, and Kurt Busch is able to close in just a bit. Let's update our rookies. There are 3 drivers entered for Ray Bestis Rookie of the Year, including Max Pappas, but only 2 running the full schedule. Right now, Scott Speed running in 29th. 1 position behind him is the other full-time rookie candidate, Joey Logano. And today in the Home Depot rookie file, Joey tells us about some of the cool things he's done for Home Depot so far.
I think the commercial is the coolest thing I did with the Home Depot right now. You know, it's so cool. You know, I mean, it's different. You know, you got a ton of people. There's probably 40 people there to film a 30-second to a minute commercial, and it takes 2 days. They had a car up on the rack. They had the whole deal. It was fun. It was different. I'm not an actor, so, but I felt like I got better by the end.
He's hoping to get better by the end of this race. Now, he won a nationwide race a week ago. He's right now running 30th, 25 seconds off the lead, and right behind Scott Speed.
These cars, I think it just goes to show how hard these cars are to drive, though. He drives a nationwide car like as good as anybody, but he still has not gotten comfortable in this COT. And if it makes him feel any better, not a lot of other guys have either.
One that has is Jimmy Johnson. He's trying for the 4-peat here at Phoenix. Matt?
And he's got his mirror full of last night's winner in a nationwide series race, Greg Biffle. Right now, Jimmy reporting in, starting today 10. The car just way too free on exit. Canal's looking at what opportunities they're going to do, how big of a swing to make an adjustment to this car due to the ever-changing conditions because the sun is beginning to set. But Mike, the spotters will all tell you, this is the most difficult place to spot. When you see those cars coming down the front stretch, the spotters are in turn 1 and 2. It's like being on an overpass on an interstate and trying to pick which car's ahead as they're coming towards you.
But all I can think about is what he told us in the pre-race show, that they tried a different setup in practice, and it was all said and done. They went back to the setup that they've won the last 3 races. I think, honestly, Chad, if you go back to our FedEx understanding the race, he had planned on maybe some earlier cautions than what we've had right now, but I think they are right on plan. Now, if he was tight right now and the car not turning, I'd be concerned. Not concerned with him being free right now. It's going to tighten up.
Much better to have to tighten it up than it is try to free it up, because then it ends up loose and tight.
Turn 3, car in the wall, Sterling Marlin. Caution, first one today at lap 54.
That had a look of a tire going down. The car kind of took off up toward the wall. I think Sterling saved it, but I believe the right front tire went down.
Tell you what, there's a lot of cars that breathe a sigh of relief to see that caution, especially we showed him a while ago, Kevin Harvick was about to go a lap down.
54 laps caution free before Marlin pounds the wall in turn 3. You'll see it in progress here.
I think he does a really good job. I mean, he just barely kisses it right there.
Yeah, you saw all those sparks, Gerald. That was down on the rim before it ever got to the wall.
Right, and I think it's minimum damage for this car.
And this is one of those tracks, since it's only a mile, that we don't run that inner liner, that safety shield. So it's pretty much the rim and the tire.
Yeah, your minimum air pressure here in the right front's 30 pounds, 27 right rear, and you can run as low as 12 pounds of air in the left sides.
It's a long looping pit road here in Phoenix, and it's open for business. Steve Burns.
Mike, the update from Tony Stewart is I've gotten loose off. Help me there. They're going to make a track bar adjustment, a wedge adjustment, and air pressure adjustment on the 14, Matt.
Hitting before the curve is a 2 of Kurt Busch. He says the car is tight, but yet it's still too free on exit. Air pressure change for the Blue Deuce. Dick Berggren.
Mark Martin has led this entire race. He brings the car to the attention of his crew, but he has told the crew the changes he wants in the car. Many drivers just describe the behavior and leave the adjustments up to the engineers and the crew chief. Not Mark. He's called his own changes. Right behind him is the 24 of Jeff Gordon. The car is so loose, Gordon said he couldn't even use the brakes going into the corner, so they've adjusted for that.
So Mark Martin continues to lead every lap so far. A bit of a fuel spill there at Jimmy Johnson's pit.
And you know, Mike, all it takes is for a little bit of fuel to be spilled and a hot lug nut get in that fuel, and you'll have a little pit fire right there. Well, you saw Greg Biffle, 16 car, and Greg Irwin. Looks like they picked up 6 positions.
Larry says, little pit fire. That's only because we're up here.
John Madden announced his retirement this week. He means so much to Fox and so much to the viewers of not just football, but John didn't change the way the game is played, but he changed the way all of us enjoy all televised sports today.
Long before there was Fox Sports, we had only one sport, NFL football. And John was our coach, our colleague, and our friend. He gave us credibility. He gave us confidence. He was an ambassador for his sport. All this praise would make him uncomfortable. He always considered himself to be just one of the guys. But what a guy and what a career. Think back to all those autumn Sunday afternoons with Pat Summerall and John Madden. The hours we spent and the pleasure of their company. How much they entertained us. How much that we know about football came from them. John turned our Thanksgiving broadcast into more than just football. Through him, to us, to you, football was a feast. With his telestrator, John took a complicated game and made it simple and fun.
What's this stuff back here? That has to be his. Look, there's a fish going by. We're looking at Jimmy Johnson. A fish just flew right by his head. He throws the ball right into 2 guys. We can stop it right there. We'll just see. He throws it right there. Here's Crockett. Here misses. Bradford here misses. And John Taylor just knocks both of them over and runs into the end zone. You know, when you always got this, you always know how much time there is and what the score is. So if you ever walk out any place, you always, like if someone's cooking dinner or something, you can look up there, 12 seconds, score,
always know the score.
10-3. You always know it. See here in the monitor, I can see the people out there, but they can't see me. So I kind of go back like this. I hide and I throw peanuts out there, but they can't see me. But I'm watching them right here to see what they're doing.
He didn't score a touchdown, sack a quarterback, or intercept a pass on Fox, but what he did with his words, his wisdom, and his body language helped the game he loved prosper. From all of us here at Fox Sports, enjoy retirement. You've certainly earned it.
You know, Mike, I watch John week in and week out, and quite honestly, I try to emulate him in a lot of ways. He was a friend of ours, a friend of mine. He gave me some of the best advice he could ever give somebody. He said, DW, be yourself and stick to what you know.
So many folks in so many sports have tried to emulate John Madden, and he taught us all. You can have fun with this. You can enjoy your sport as much as the folks at home, and we do. The free pass beneficiary was Scott Riggs, the number 36, back on the lead lap. Paul Menard had to pit twice, and Dale Earnhardt Jr. had to come back in a second time.
And I'm going to say this right here. They have got to fix their pit road problems. They have been terrible on pit road since the drop of the green flag in Daytona. They had problems in Texas, and they've had a problem here already. You can't keep overcoming that.
So Earnhardt will restart 34th. Speaking of mishaps, you're watching from Casey Kane. There goes Biffle.
Oh, wow. And that's all because of looked like the 16 has turned sideways in his pit box.
A lot of fellows were.
It's going right down into that corner where it gets so tight.
Ready for our Claret & Clear to drive restart. Live Claret & Clear indoors and out.
You know, moving forward a little bit, Mike, but the pit road at Dover, they are finally fixing that pit road. And there's other racetracks that need to take notes and fix their pit roads.
Now there'll be 43 pit stalls at Dover when we go there at the end of May. Mark Martin has led every lap, and if there was ever a driver who wanted to stink up the show, it's Mark Martin this weekend.
But I think there's a guy that's wanting to put an end to that, and that's that Kurt Busch in that 2 car back there, because we could watch him near the end of that last run just eating away at Mark Martin's lead.
Yeah, it might be getting close to Miller time. Not sure. It's looking pretty good right now.
Last I looked, beer and cornflakes don't go well together. Martin holds the lead by 0.3 of a second. And look who's the new third-place car, Denny Hamlin, as Jimmy Johnson makes a move to the inside of Carl Edwards and pulls right up on Kyle Busch.
Just remember, everybody is on 4 fresh tires. I'm sure what everybody will be awaiting is what these cars are like after 4 fresh tires and adjustments 20 laps from now.
Johnson to the inside of Kyle Busch, and he continues his move forward. He's going to pin Busch behind John Andretti, and that should allow Johnson to get to 10th place. Krista.
Mike, you had documented how Kyle Busch had started to fall back before that caution. He told the team his car was getting worse in, worse center, worse off, but he said he really needed forward bite. Steve Addington made a wedge adjustment to try to give him that drive off the turns.
And remember, that was one of Jeff Hammond's keys right before we took the green flag is forward bite. That just means the rear wheel's hooking up under acceleration off the corner.
Now his nose just about hooked up with the rear of that 48 car down there in turn 1. Then the 48 cut him off.
Third place. And Tony Stewart. Whoa, look at that handful of wheels Stewart had to get to regain control as he slid up track in front of Denny Hamlin.
Well, on these low air pressures, when you come out of the pits and the pressures are so low, the car will jump around a little bit till the pressures build up. That's when you'll hear that crew chief always say, just be patient, it'll come to you. Got to wait for those pressures to come up a tad.
.62 laps complete. Mark Martin has led them all. How long can he stay out front?
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 on Fox is sponsored by AT&T. Your world delivered. By Napa Auto Parts. Napa, get the good stuff. By FedEx Racing. We understand every day is race day. And by Cheez-It, the big cheese.
At 70 laps, Mark Martin, Kurt Busch, Tony Stewart. Here is a look at Carl Edwards, who is in 13th. He started 11th. New paint scheme for Carl this week. His favorite Subway sub, sweet onion chicken teriyaki.
Sounds pretty good.
Must be good for 2 or 3 horsepower at least.
Can't do anything. My left front feels like it's all wadded up.
Now look at Dale Jr. in the 88. Look at the wad of traffic he's in. All because they had to make a second stop under this first caution period.
He's back there. He's in a box. He can't go anywhere. He's boxed in behind all these cars. Plus, I don't think his car is very good right now.
Larry, you raised the question about them having to make changes on this pit crew. Dick Berggren can tell us they have.
Yeah, they sure have, Mike. The rear tire changer, Kip Wolfmeyer, was moved to the front for tonight's race. Wolfmeyer, a real veteran, but it was the front lug nut with which they had the problem. Then they hired Greg Burkhart to do the rears. He's another veteran. He was released from the 8 team when that team folded this week, so they had a new guy on the back end. They were even careful about the pit that they picked. Crew chief Tony Uri Jr. picked a pit with the timing line right in the middle of the pit. That would help Junior avoid speeding penalties. So they've done a lot to solve their pit problems, but on the very first stop, they had a bad one.
And he is mired in 31st.
And on his pit box tonight is Brian Weitzel, who has won races with Jeff Gordon. Doug Ducart, who is, I'm sure, they're the eyes of Mr. Hendrick. They are trying desperately to find a way to fix this problem. It seems like, I tell you, if you keep changing people around, you work as a team, and it's going to take some time. You can't keep changing things every week.
And you know, Mike, we talked at the top of the show about this as a very short race. You can't have mistakes like that and overcome them. You might can do it at Texas a couple of weeks ago or Talladega next week, but it's just hard to overcome a problem here in this short race.
Now, not only Dale Jr.'s team making changes, we all saw the problems that Carl Edwards had in the last race, coming into the pits leading on the final stop, having a lug nut problem, falling deep in the field and not having a chance to contend. So, Krista, what has Roush Fenway Racing done to mix things up this race?
Well, Mike, they have also made a change, and this was a choice by Bob Osborne. The crew chief made this call. They replaced the front changer. Actually, they moved the rear changer, Greg Donlin, to the fronts and added a new member. The rear changer is now Brandon Hopkins. There you're seeing him. He is brand new. He came from Germain Racing, came from the Truck Series. And on that first stop, I just checked with the team. They said he did great. So his debut so far is doing well. That's our new crew member on the 99.
But you know what? You come from the Truck Series, you come from the Nationwide Series, you come all over these places. But when you get to this level, they don't give you, it's like driving these cars. They don't give you a chance to get better. You better be good when you get here, and you better do it right the first time.
That's right. You're in the show now.
That's it.
I mean, the competition competition on pit road is about as keen and as stiff as it is out on the racetrack. These guys are trying to change 4 tires and dump 18.5 to 19 gallons of Sunoco race fuel in 12.5 seconds. That's a tall order, and have it mistake-free.
One caution so far, and let me go back and correct. Mark Martin has led every lap of this race but one. During the caution period, all the lead lap cars pitted the first time around, with the exception of Michael Waltrip. He stayed out on track to lead a lap, pick up 5 bonus points, and then made his pit stop. So Mark's led all the green flag laps, all but 1 lap overall.
I tell you, Michael was about to go a lap down. That worked out real good for him. But a guy I'm watching a little bit is a 29 car. Really frustrated this whole weekend with his car. Not happy. And watch this. He's just coming up off a 2 over there, and he just hangs the 98 car there, a Menard, and just about puts them both in the wall.
And you know, Darrell, I just wonder if part of Kevin Harvick's frustration, they're not running very good. They were terrible at Texas a couple of weeks ago. And then you look at Kevin Harvick Incorporated with his truck and his Nationwide car. Both of those operations are good right now.
I'm on the same page with you, brother.
37 cars on the lead lap, 79 laps complete, 1 caution flag so far, and Mark Martin is still our leader. '85 laps, and Mark Martin is still your leader. He's led all but 1. He's 7/10 up on Kurt Busch. 1 change in the top 10. Jimmy Johnson has passed David Rudiman, and that moves Johnson up to 7th place.
You know, Mike, I keep watching Mark and Kurt there, and it looks like Mark is cruising. Not really driving all that hard, but you look back at that 2 car, it looks like he's wheeling it pretty hard trying to catch Mark.
Dick Berggren, how about our leader?
Well, Mark Martin has had a very interesting year, Mike. As you well know, he's been so fast in practice and race weekend after race weekend. He's now won 3 poles in the last 5 starts. But when they dropped the green flag, the car just hasn't been there until tonight. The most laps he had led in a race this year was 5. So before the start of the race, he and I had a little conversation, and I asked him if they had hit it tonight. And Mark said that he really didn't know, that he felt that the camp he was driving for, the Hendrick operation, had huge amounts of adjustments and setups and things that they could try, and he'd only tried a handful. And he thought that they'd been close before, but they hadn't really hit it. Guess what? They hit it tonight.
And I can only think back to yesterday when we interviewed Mark after that final practice session. His big deal was making sure that he was telling Alan Gustafson, his crew chief, make sure you put this car exactly like we had it in practice to start that race.
Kurt Busch running him down, may have brushed the wall right there. Midway down that back straightaway and into the kink. As Kurt tries to run down race leader Mark Martin. What do you say, boys? It's Saturday night. Let's wake up the neighbors. Crank it up. Heavy traffic for the leaders. Kevin Harvick right in front of Mark Martin, and Kurt Busch waiting to pounce.
Well, Kevin Harvick is not going to just roll over. He's going to fight to stay on this lead lap in that 29 car. You know, just out in front of Kevin Harvick is Paul Menard. We mentioned that he had to come back to pit road like Dale Earnhardt Jr. He started 7th in that 98 car and stayed in the top 10, but he got into the 16 car on pit road and had to come back to check the fender. But I'm telling you right now, Mark Martin, he's got his hands full of Kurt Busch, and look at Tony Stewart, the 14 right car.
And I tell you, I think Kurt probably just said to Mark Martin, don't cut down across my nose like that again, because I might not be so nice next time.
Trying to come inside now.
Well, coming up to lap Kevin Harvick, that's like kicking a hornet's nest, because Harvick has 6 wins here across the 3 top NASCAR series.
You know, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, go.
You know what, I was watching Tony Stewart the last time through 1 and 2 is he stuck his nose on the outside of Kurt Busch. He was all the way on the apron there, but you have to be so careful being on the high side at the exit of turn 2 because the car lunges against the wall.
Well, when I interrupted Mike, I was going to say I think Mark might have brushed the wall off of 2 that last time by. Saw the car kind of right there. Looked like he almost did it again.
He's using it all up over there.
The car jumped up in the air just a tad that last time off that corner.
Harvick gives way for 2nd and 3rd, and Stewart is there. Steve.
Mike just heard Tony Stewart say we took off good after that pit stop, but I'm just now starting to give up some forward bite.
And you could see it that last time off turn 4. The hands do not lie when you're looking at them on that steering wheel.
I think the biggest thing these guys all have to remember, and the crew chiefs I'm sure are telling them all the time, may not be very good, brother, but you're better than everybody else.
You got to be a little bit of a salesman.
That's right.
Well, you see now, even turn 4 is beginning to get some shade as this track transitions from daylight to dusk. Who will be best when the sun goes down?
Time for an AT&T race break live from Phoenix. NASCAR on Fox in prime time, and Mark Martin, age 50, the pole sitter, looking for his first win this year, his first win ever out of a Roush car. His previous poles this year winding up 31st and 6th. The Hendrick cars have won the last 4 races, Jeff Hammond, here in Phoenix, with, of course, Jimmy Johnson and then Jeff Gordon before that. And he'll be fighting them off as we have a caution
on the racetrack for some debris right there. And we saw some pretty intense racing coming back to that caution flag between Casey Mears and the 98 car of Bobby Labonte.
So we saw guys moving up like Martin Truex Jr. and Casey Kane. How does that enhance or hurt what they were doing this caution?
Well, I think they've moved up quite well so far. Maybe having an opportunity to come back to pit road and make a little bit of adjustment may allow them to get a little bit better. And we've just been told also that Bobby Labonte is going to get the free pass because of that good effort right there before the caution came out, staying in front of the leader.
And track position, that's actually Paul Menard getting the free pass. The track position so important here because this is such a, as Larry and Darrell have stressed, a short, quick race. The track position, you can't afford to lose like we saw Dale Earnhardt Jr. with that lug nut pit problem.
Yeah, for the other guys right now, they need to come down pit road and redeem themselves. And the same thing right now for everybody to see the leaders pull off on pit road right now. No mistakes now. Don't beat yourself.
Mark Martin has led all but 1 lap. Let's check in with Steve Burns.
Chris, Tony Stewart just told Darian Grubb, give me the same exact changes as last time. Just need some more of it. They're going to adjust that air pressure, also wedge, and also track bar, Matt.
Kurt Busch running in the 2nd spot on the upper left. He says the track is starting to come to us. The car a little tight, a little free. Doesn't want to make any adjustments at this juncture, Dick Berggren.
And Mark Martin has brought his car onto pit road as well. This crew is not known as the fastest on pit road, but they are known as one of the most efficient. They just don't make any mistakes. Chris?
Thanks very much, Dick. Steve, Matt?
Well, the key thing right now is you keep hearing about these folks talking about the racetrack changing. These adjustments right now, Chris, this is a very short race. You've got to make the right adjustment. You've got to make a big enough adjustment so that you don't get caught behind. That's what's going to be important. But look at the pit road. I mean, the race off of pit road, the 2 car right now beat the 5 off of pit road. But look at the 16. We've been talking about Roush Fenway and how they've been performing on pit road so far. That 16 group, they have been on it.
Tony Stewart losing 4 spots and about an hour and 20 to 25 minutes by the time the sun sets in that time frame from the time that they have begun. To vote for the AT&T Fastest Pit Crew of the Year award from your AT&T phone, text the car number for the pit crew you think will be the fastest and most valuable. The fan vote, along with Jeff's picks to determine the winning crew each week, counts for something. So your vote important to us. Vote each week for the AT&T Fastest Pit Crew of the Year award. And Bobby Labonte has recycled in front.
Yeah, he stayed out right now, and he is now our lead car in the Ask.com car, riding behind the pace car.
Well, that's a rejoin. Darrell, Larry, and Mike.
So we're under the 2nd caution of the day, and if you don't think it's tight down on pit road, watch this race off pit road as Jeff Gordon pulls out. Count them across, 4 wide.
And she's just barely wide enough for 4 cars. But I tell you, you see Greg Biffle in that 16 car come out there 3rd. Big attaboy to that group. They gained 6 spots on the first pit stop. They gained 3 spots then. And remember, that's one of the Roush Fenway cars. They had issues as well at Texas a couple of weeks ago.
You know, Larry, you talk about pit road, though, and you got to remember something. There are more cars on pit road today than there ever have been before. I mean, what did we have come into pits that time? About 30-some cars. But look at all these pit signs. I mean, that's all up and down pit road, and you got cars all over the place. Finding your pit box. Look at that. Here I am right here. Where?
Right.
I remember talking to Juan Pablo Montoya about this. He said, I see everybody's sign but mine.
But that's a nightmare. How's a guy going to find his pit box unless you got to count him in? But
that's what Dale Jr. said in Daytona.
Gosh.
I see everybody's sign but my own. You're right, Darrell. It's now. There you go. Thumbs up.
That's Carl Edwards' pit sign.
All right. The target, of course, is Montoya's. We will restart with 33, make that 34 cars on the lead lap. And they're going to hold this off for one more lap. There is still a track truck down in turn 1 doing a little cleanup, and they need to get him back into position. You will see that the track is now shaded except for turn 3. Everything else is in shade. Turn 1 and 2 since the start of the race, and turn 4 most recently. Here's today's Ford Drive 1 moment. The very first Phoenix Sprint Cup race was also the first career win for the engineer from Wisconsin that was the owner, driver, chief cook, and bottle washer, Alan Kulwicki's Xerox Ford. Took the lead for the final time with 16 laps to go as engine failure sidelined Ricky Rudd. Kulwicki won by 18 seconds over Terry Labonte and drove his victory lap the wrong way around the racetrack. His self-described Polish victory lap had been in the plans for a long time. Alan Kulwicki is missed. Want to win a Ford Fusion? Log on to WeRaceYouWin.com to see how.
You know, Mike, we saw Sterling Marlin get into the wall earlier on that first caution. He's back out on the racetrack, but Joe Nemechek, Dave Blaney, and Tony Raines, they are in the garage area right now.
Ready to go green. One more lap. And we'll restart this race. We've had just 2 caution flags, one for Marlin's accident at lap 55 and a debris caution at lap 103. Kurt Busch will be our leader. Now, Mark Martin has led 102 laps. This is the 37th time in his career that Martin has led 100 or more laps, and the 3rd time at this racetrack. In 1993, he led 212 laps and won, and in 2006, he finished 11th after leading 111 laps. So, new sheriff in town, and that's no joke. Kurt Busch is an honorary sheriff of Maricopa County. Don't know if that badge will do him any good in Talladega next week as NASCAR on Fox moves to the fastest speedway on earth, where Kyle Busch will try to defend his title. Sprint Cup Series racing from Talladega next Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific in high definition right here on Fox.
She'll live up to her name. She's the biggest, the baddest, and the boldest Talladega Superspeedway.
You left out one fast.
Oh, yeah.
Ready to go green with our Claret & Clear to Drive restart. Get Claret & Clear. Get back to feeling like yourself again.
I'd say you'll see that 29 car, Kevin Harvick, get both hands and feet up on that steering wheel trying to get back on the lead lap.
I think Kurt wanted to get away from him as soon as possible. Well, we'll see if the theory holds true. The car out front, nobody can pass it. Mark Martin couldn't be passed. They had to pass him in the pits. Why is the pit so important? To take the lead of the race.
Dale Earnhardt used to tell me it takes me about 12 seconds to pass him on pit road. It could take me about 12 or 30 laps to pass him on the racetrack.
Three wide. Jeff Gordon got squeezed out of the middle while racing for 6th place right there. 3 wide going into turn 1. Here comes Stewart underneath. Nope, he'll go with Gordon around the lap number 34 of Andretti.
got quite a battle there for the 4th spot between Denny Hamlin in the 11 car and Jimmy Johnson in the 48th. I think Chad Knaus, they've had just enough opportunities to get that car where they want it, and now this racetrack is starting to cool down.
I was just going to say, did you say 48?
Oh, yeah.
Now, Steve, Tony Stewart came into the pits 3rd, came out 8th on that last pit stop. What happened?
Mike, it looks like they had trouble on the right front of that 14, front tire changer Kelly Kellis, but here's the big key, Mike. When Tony got back out onto the racetrack, he was the cheerleader. He said, guys, don't worry about it. We're better than that. Let's do better on the next stop.
And Steve, he was their cheerleader at Texas. He told them under caution, just slow down. Just give me nice, good, consistent stops.
A lot of 3-wide racing here. And not always a whole lot of room to race. How about Martin Truex in 11th, Steve?
Mike, you guys said it earlier, not a good qualifying effort. He predicted he'd be in the top 10 by lap 50, and he was. They also had a little bit of a problem on pit road. He got into the back of David Rudiman's 00 car, but he likes his car, saying it's got good grip in the front.
Let's show you what Steve just described.
Yeah, I saw these guys. 00
Wow.
just pulled right out in front of the one car, and he got into the back of him. I don't think he got into him very hard until this happened.
A little by the way.
He just gave that dog a bone.
How about Rudiman, Matt?
Mike, right before that caution, David Rudiman told his crew chief, Rodney Childers, we need something and need something big. He had just lost the nose of the race car. On that stop, they made a quarter turn of wedge. It just needs to roll through the better, but he says the car is free and exit, but whatever you do, don't touch that. I'm happy with it.
Rudiman is 10th.
And I think that backs up what we've been saying. You can't be tight right now. The car has got to turn because it's only going to get worse as this race cools down.
And for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the tires, the car, or a combination of both, but these cars get looser when the sun goes down in a lot of cases.
Cut. Stay tuned for more NASCAR on Fox.
Subway Fresh Fit 500 is sponsored by Home Depot. More saving, more doing. That's the power of the Home Depot. By Pennzoil Platinum Full Synthetic, our ultimate clean, your ultimate feeling. By Sprint, NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile. It'll change the way you experience the race. And by State Farm, where great coverage meets great rates.
Kurt Busch has led this race since lap 105. We're at lap 122 now. He's got a second up on Mark Martin. Greg Biffle is the 3rd place car. Jimmy Johnson, Denny Hamlin. All 4 makes represented in the top 5. Now, about 3 laps ago, Dale Earnhardt Jr. running toward the back of the pack made a wild slide in turn number 2, and everybody went by.
Mike, this car is evil. I mean, I'm watching it all the way around the racetrack. When he picks up the throttle, it turns sideways. What's he saying, Dick?
Well, he just said that the car is incredibly loose. They did pull a spring rubber on that last pit stop, but Earnhardt came into this event as one of the favorites to win it. But between problems on pit road and problems with the behavior of the car, it's just not handling. He certainly isn't looking like a winner at this moment.
And you would tend to believe they pulled that spring rubber out of the right rear spring, because in that spring in the right rear, it would make the car turn, but can make it a little bit loose under acceleration.
And maybe if they get another shot at it before he gets in too much trouble here, go a lap down or whatever, put that rubber back in and one more to go with it.
There you go.
Because sometimes jacking that right rear up will make the car drive better.
Paul Menard just in front of him. Menard, who's had to make multiple pit stops under caution. And here is Stewart passing Denny Hamlin. This is for 5th place.
You know, I can't help but also think back to yesterday as Tony gets a little bit loose off turn 4. Tony ran probably more laps than anybody, long race runs, and it just looks like that 14 car is good on the long run. Maybe not a short run car, but good on the long run.
I like a car good on the long run because, you know, you obviously can pass a few people. But look where Tony is. He's going into turn 3 right now, and here comes the leader, Kurt Busch, at the line right here. So even though he's good on the long run, you can't make up that distance you lost on the short run.
Just ahead of Stewart, Jimmy Johnson is 5.5 seconds behind the leader in 4th place, Matt.
The small work in progress, Mike, continues for Jimmy Johnson and Chad Canals. Jimmy said right before that last stop, the car is so much better in the center of the corner. It's unbelievable. And when you look at the fact the past 3 races here, Mike, he is left with a lot of money in race winnings with his 3 straight wins. But on Thursday night, he made a big deposit here in the Phoenix area. He sponsored the Jimmy Johnson Foundation 150, the Camping World West race. They raised $75,000, part of which is going to go to a local group called the West Valley Child Crisis Center. So in my book, call it 4 wins in a row for Johnson here in Phoenix.
And if he thinks whatever they did to the car is unbelievable, wonder what he thinks the rest of us think, because they do that all the time.
Well, we move now into the second segment of this race. The sun's gone. You can see it over the horizon behind the suites in turn 1, but there's no direct sunlight on the racetrack. That means Mark Martin was the leading sunshine boy along with Kurt Busch in the first segment of this race. Now we transition to dusk. What will the racetrack do?
Well, it's going to gain more grip for everybody because it's really cooling down. And like Darrell said, I think these cars go different directions as we see a battle right now for 10th place between Martin Truex Jr. in the 1 and Brian Vickers in the 83. I think some of the cars will get tighter, but we've also seen where some of the cars get looser. And about 100 laps from now, it'll go through that final transition when darkness sets in.
We are 128 laps in with 184 to go. Kristen.
Well, Mike, Larry, you just talked about the car getting loose. Brian Vickers is one of those. His car is getting really loose under throttle. They made an air pressure adjustment. Ryan Pemberton talked about wedge, but Brian said, no, I don't want to hurt the center, so they did a track bar adjustment instead. Brian just got on the radio and said, the car is much better, but I know Darrell will relate to this. Still need more of that same adjustment as last time.
Yeah, keep jacking on it.
But I think you do have to be really careful. If the back end's not hooking up, hook the back end up. Don't unhook the front end. I like it right now.
Kurt Busch has now led 31 laps in the Blue Deuce, and Mark Martin has closed up to within 0.4 of a second as they lap past Joey Logano. Reed Sorensen started 36th. He is up to 20th. Martin Truex Jr. has also gained 16 positions.
And just look at that 26 car, Jamie McMurray. This is a nice recovery for them for the entire weekend, because right as the track opened for practice yesterday, there you see Jamie right there, he got into the wall. And
Trouble turn 2.
It's like Stremme in the 12 car just went around.
Caution is out.
Here guys, I'm coming outside.
That'll be the 3rd caution of the day. I didn't see it start. Stremme was way sideways off turn 2.
You know who really loved that caution?
Right there.
Yes, sir. Dale Earnhardt Jr. He was the next victim to our leader, Kurt Busch.
I can't even touch the entrance in the corner.
Off to the right of your screen, you'll see Stremme enter the picture. And
yeah, you see him right here. He just loses it off the 2, which is, you kind of get a big handful of steering wheel coming up out there in throttle under power, and all of a sudden the back end will jump out with you. That's what happened to him. That's a classic push loose.
Yeah, finally those front wheels bite, and you've got the wheel turned so far the car just gets loose with you.
And Larry, I really believe we're seeing this same thing we've seen a number of times. The cooler it gets, the looser you get.
Stremme was running 23rd. He was solidly on the lead lap. As we now have the 3rd caution of the night, Joey Logano will get the free pass and be back on the lead lap when we restart. That'll put 34 cars on the lead lap.
But Darrell, I almost think, I don't know that they're getting looser. It's just like the front tires start gaining the grip. And the rear tires are not gaining as much grip as the front tires are.
I think you're right. It's got more pressure on the front tires, makes the thing want to spin out.
I'll pass on a quick get well wish to Tanya Edmondson, who handles all our Fox Sports travel, doing a little sheet time, and Mike Paz, longtime public address voice of the ISC tracks. Get well soon. All right, pit road's open. Steve Burns.
Mike, Tony Stewart just said I've gotten loose on entry, so they made air pressure adjustments to that number 14, his tires. He also wants a windshield tear off, Matt.
And to the 4-box, Kurt Busch, the leader, his biggest complaint, bugs on the racetrack. He wants a clean windshield. No other changes for the 2. Meanwhile, the 48 at Johnson, he says his car is tight, but in a small window down to 1 and 2. Dick.
And just before that caution flag flew, Mark Martin got on the radio and told his crew the car is good, good, good. He was closing in on the lead. Meanwhile, car number 16, Greg Biffle, has not yet left his pit. He just got out now. He had been in the 3rd position. Biffle has been struggling with that race car all night. It's been tight, it's been loose, but he has somehow or another hung on, and until just now, the crew had picked him up spots.
Thanks, Dick. Martin Truex having a bit of trouble there on pit road. We'll revisit it. As he comes out, David Stremme coming in, and there's the collision. Here's the restart. Kurt Busch, Martin Truex Jr., who changed just 2 tires. Despite that bump getting out of the pits, he came out second and run second, with Mark Martin third, David Rudiman, Tony Stewart the top 5.
David Rudiman in the 00 car, that group as well went with just 2 right side tires. They had about 30 laps on their tires. I think everybody's realized that. Jeff Hammond talked about it in the pre-race. Track position, so important.
Yeah, we see that with our leader. I mean, Mark led until he got past the pits. Stu took the lead, and now he's out front, sort of uncontested.
And you want to find out now, you want to test the waters now, how those 2 tires work, and I'm sure a lot of eyes will be watching how they work.
I got a pretty good idea how to work, but we'll see how it plays out.
You see Jimmy Johnson, who came into the pits 4th and came out 13th. Montoya a bit loose there in the 42. Let's show you what happened on Johnson's pit stop. Keep an eye on the right rear. Jeremy West is the tire changer. And on the exchange, there goes a lug nut to the ground. Picks it up, put it on, drops again, and finally he hammers it home. But that cost them 9 positions.
But that's the way to do it. Don't let the car leave and have to come back. And you saw that NASCAR official right there watching every move that they were making, make sure those 5 lug nuts were in contact with the wheel.
Hammond was showing me earlier over at Hollywood Hotel, over at his cutaway car. He's got a great demonstration. Let's go over there and let him show us what's going on.
Talking about here is last year, we've talked about this all year long, NASCAR made a rule change and told the teams they had to add extra threads outside the lug nuts. Right now, this is what we're looking at. You see the extra threads that are sticking out past this lug nut? Every team has to do that. That's mandatory. This is the way it was run last year. You can see no threads. And what has happened, a lot of these teams, it's thrown off their rhythm. Going around this wheel, you've got 5 lug nuts you're trying to take off. It's almost like hitting a 6th extra nut on this wheel, and it's really messed up the hand and eye coordination of a lot of these teams. And when they get in a situation like the 48 car, a lot of the coaches are telling me that's the reason why the rhythm is getting all messed up, and they're laying a lot of blame on these extra threads on these wheels.
Thanks, Jeff. It begs the question, why did NASCAR make this rule change?
I think it was more of a safety item. You know, they wanted to make sure teams get so creative with lug nuts and lug studs, just trying to speed a pit stop up. I just think that's the biggest reason they did it, maybe a safety standpoint.
When you saw the threads outside the lug nuts that Jeff showed us, what teams were doing, they were cutting that back further and further to where you basically only had 2 or 3 threads holding that nut on. But all you had to do was just hit it one time and it was tight.
So safety was compromised. Kurt Busch, your leader, as you ride with Carl Edwards in 16th.
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 on Fox is sponsored by Subway, home of the famous $5 footlong. Subway, race hard, eat fresh.
Carl Edwards on his way to get a sweet onion chicken teriyaki sub.
I think Jeff Gordon's blowing up. Or no, I tell you what happened.
He's got a tire rub.
He's got a tire rub.
Maybe that left front ain't gonna take it that much longer.
I saw smoke fly out of it. He made contact up here in 3 and 4 with somebody. I thought it was because he was slowing down, but I guess he just got run into.
You can see it just
it's
right there about 11 o'clock.
Right where that nose is, that carbon fiber stuff. That'll cut that tire right down.
And at the top of the wheel well, that fender's all shoved in.
Yeah,
he's made hard contact with someone.
He's fallen back to the 18th position, about 10 seconds behind leader Kurt Busch.
Turn 2, it is the 44 of A.J. Allmendinger.
What's one man's misfortune is another man's fortune. That was Jeff Gordon's fortune right there because he needed that caution.
Allmendinger, whose option was picked up this week by Richard Petty Motorsports through 2010, has had a strong start to this season, but around and into the fence he goes.
Now, I'm pretty sure since it's only been about 9 laps, we may see some teams actually stay out, but I think we'll see a lot of teams, if they do come to pit road, that they'll come to pit road and get just those 2 right side tires. We know he's going to come get 4 plus repair the fender.
This is looking from the back of Dale Jr.'s car.
Side, say hi, come on. He's spinning out behind you.
You know, it looks like he drove down in there under Dale Jr. and saw he was going to get into him and locked it up and spun it out. I think that may be what happened to the 44 of Allmendinger.
We're pretty sure that Truex and Rudeman will come in. They only got 2 tires on that last pit stop.
Yeah, they made their bed. I think they'll lay in a while.
Okay, we're pretty sure they're going to stay out.
And here comes the 48 car, Jimmy Johnson. And in pretty much everyone at the back of the pack as far as lead lap cars, especially Jeff Gordon, you see him hitting pit road.
See, I like this right here because now I'm out of sync with the leaders.
Okay.
So next time I'll stay out.
Matt.
Going to be a 4-tire change for Jimmy Johnson. Hit road in the 11th position since most of the cars in front of him did not pit. They came in to get the fresh tires. Dick.
Well, Jeff Gordon is in the pit. They had to come in. Jeff wanted to stay out on the racetrack, but crew chief Steve Letarte overruled and said no, he had to come in. So they're going to fix that fender, get rid of the smoke problem that they had, and remove the possibility of a tire going down. They are now pulling at the left front fender, banging on it with a hammer, trying to get it squared away, and Gordon will start at the back of the pack.
But it's going to be interesting to watch this 24 and his 48 car because we've seen cars that get at the back of the pack, and we've still got 32 cars on the lead lap get back there and just get trapped. You seem like you can't go anywhere.
Well, we've seen that with the 24 a lot over the last couple of years. Looked like they had that kind of corrected this year, but we'll see.
And add to those lead lap cars Kevin Harvick, who gets the free pass on this, the 4th caution of the night. Earlier today, Jeff Hammond filed this State Farm safety report.
In an effort to prevent fires, NASCAR requires all the teams to run a fuel cell located in the rear of the car. And it also has to be up to NASCAR standards as far as the installation is concerned. The bladder itself, well, it's an aerospace technology rubber bladder that goes inside the steel container. Now, the bladder itself has to be SFI industry approved. That means that it has to go through certain testing to be able to be used in a NASCAR race. Cool thing about it is they also have an expiration date, 5 years old. That's all they can use as far as inside the fuel cell itself. NASCAR doesn't fill these things up to make sure they can hold 18 gallons. What they do, they use a dimension to let the guys and the teams know what size this thing can be. It's 33 by 17 by 8. All of this is done in an effort to keep not only competition fair, but safe.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, Mark Martin won the daylight segment of this race. Kurt Busch won the twilight segment of our triple header. And now the nighttime, as Darrell said earlier, is going to be the right time. And not soon enough for the Hendrick team, because look what happened to Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson and some of the cars they were in close proximity with, like Denny Hamlin.
This is where Jeff gets his fender knocked in, I think. No.
That was actually contact in the left rear.
It's the left front fender they pulled this time, and that was just another of the donuts and wheel marks you get here at Phoenix. This place just races a whole lot more like a short track than it does a super speedway.
Yeah, it does until something goes wrong. And then you say, man, I must have been doing a lot. I must have been going faster than I thought I was. Right. So you enter these corners at about 160 miles an hour.
But we've got Jimmy Johnson that's going to restart 25th. Jeff Gordon restart 31st. And we're almost halfway through this race.
Green flag.
Elliott Sadler in that 19 car fighting to try to get back on the lead lap. I think you'll see Kurt Busch just really drive it down into turn 3 and 4, and he'll get by Elliott.
Well, Larry, I was a little bit worried about, not worried, I shouldn't say that. I've seen development of a new engine sometimes probably have more problems on tracks like this where you got to have so much grunt up off the corner right now where the 2 car is. Sometimes an engine, a new one, will have a lot of horsepower, but all on the top end. It looks like this Dodge engine they got in this car now has got top end and bottom end.
And it seems like the Penske cars are the only ones racing the new Dodge engine.
They're capitalizing on it.
Greg Biffle moves up to 6th as we cross through halfway. And we now have the incident that put the left front on Jeff Gordon's car askew, and it was again contact with Denny Hamlin.
It's pretty significant.
Right there.
They really are starting to lean on each other real hard. That's going into turn 3, and you can see what it did to Jeff's left front fender.
But there where it happened was the kink in the back straightaway.
Well, and then you saw that Jeff Gordon didn't help it any by bamming into him again.
Denny Hamlin right now running in the 11th position. In fact, he just got passed by Jeff Burton, or he's got a battle with Jeff Burton in the 31.411.
Greg Biffle moves past Martin Truex. That's 5th place for Biffle. Steve?
Mike, on the previous pit stop, Martin Truex Jr. and Kevin Bono Manny, the crew chief, had a funny exchange. Bono said, "Are you thinking 2 tires?" Martin said, "No, I'm thinking 4." Bono said, "Are you thinking 2?" Martin Truex Jr. said, "Whatever." And Bono said, "Good, we need track position." He took 2.
And they almost could not come back to pit road after only running a few laps because they had already kind of made their bed. Now you've got to lay in it.
You're right. It was so few laps under green since that stop. Here's 10th place on back. Jeff Burton, Ryan Newman, Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, Casey Kane. Krista, how about Newman and that radio problem that he's had?
Yeah, Mike, they haven't had radio communication since lap 37. Ryan cannot talk, but he can hear. So what he's doing is giving hand signals. If his car is tight, he's touching the roof. If it's loose, he's touching the door. Tony Gibson asked if the changes they made on the last stop helped. He said, touch the door if they helped. Ryan went by, patting the door like crazy to tell Tony Gibson, yes, it worked. Dick.
Denny Hamlin, car number 11, just dropped down to the 13th spot, has told his crew he may have a left front tire going down.
I'm not surprised if he's been using the sidewalls of them pretty good.
But now, Darrell, the contact he had with Jeff Gordon was with Hamlin's right front.
Exactly.
So this could be interesting.
Yeah. Well, he might be confused.
Whoa, he and Jimmy Johnson almost get together.
And you can see the right side of the car. That right front tire is really scuffed up. So he might think it's a left, but it's most likely the right if he's having a problem.
Well, I'm going to tell you what, that 48 car is taking no prisoners with these 4 fresh tires. Remember, he started back in the 25th position, and after just 8 laps, he's already just about to crack the top 10. He's in 13th.
Now, this just happened from Jimmy Johnson's view.
Jimmy's down on the apron. Just touches the back of the 11 car of Hamlin and moves him over a little bit.
Outside.
You know the common denominator? Denny Hamlin.
Or Hendrick Motorsports.
Kurt Busch leads pole sitter Mark Martin by 1 second in the Subway Fresh Fit 500.
You're watching NASCAR on Fox.
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 on Fox is sponsored by Toyota. Moving forward. By AT&T, your world delivered. By DirecTV. If you call yourself a sports fan, you gotta get DirecTV. And by Triple Hops Brewed Miller Lite. Great taste, less filling.
Ready for the restart. The first 5 cars did not pit under that caution. The first one that did is Kurt Busch in 6th as you look at Fox Tracks. So that puts Dale Earnhardt Jr. out in front of Marcus Ambrose, Jeff Gordon, David Stremme, and Bobby Labonte.
And I don't think that was bad strategy because those 5 cars were just on pit road about 10 laps before that. But I think we can get an answer on our leader from Dick Berggren.
Yeah, we can. I'm going to ask Tony Eury Jr. Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s crew chief, why did you not pit?
Well, we pitted like 10 laps earlier, you know, just we got to get off sequence. We got to get the track position somehow. We had a bad pit stop, and the car has just been really off. So we got the car halfway dialed in. We got to do something to get track position. So we went and got off sequence. So right now we're just hoping to like get maybe a 20 or 25 lap run, get back on sequence with the leaders, and hopefully we can lead this thing.
Well, when you're behind, you got to try stuff, and that's just what Junior's pit is doing.
That's a pretty bold gamble. So far, so good. Now here are the best of the two drivers who pitted. And they have been the two at the front all night long. Kurt Busch in the 2 and Mark Martin in the 5.
Yeah, buddy, I'll tell you right now, this is a bunch of cars wadded up back in here. They've been knocking the fire out of each other too.
Well, they've got some lapped cars to deal with. And Jeff Burton.
Watch this right here. This is all going down into turn 1. Look at this wad of cars right here. You got Kurt out there on the outside, and the 96 just runs him all the way up the hill. He loses a lot of track position right there, but man, that thing comes off the corner and he gets it right back.
Nice move there by Jeff Burton in the 31.
And just remember, Kurt Busch in that 2 car, his crew chief Pat Tryson went with just 2 tires on that last caution on their pit stop, changed just the right sides only.
Well, they may need to change him again, Larry, because he just bit the wall.
Tell you, when you get back in that kind of traffic like they're in right now, anything can happen. Oh, this not looking. No, that's not good.
He actually hit that wall pretty hard.
That hurt that baby.
And that was the concrete right there, not the safer barrier. Matt, what are they saying about damage control?
The driver just reported in. Tire is rubbing. I see smoke.
Well, I don't see a lot of smoke. You might be getting a haze up inside the car.
Just a small wisp of tire smoke just right in the center of 1 and 2. That was it.
That's all you're getting. Little whisper.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. I think they can ride it out.
5 cautions so far as we watch Kurt Busch. Boy, Robbie Gordon was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Steve Burns is with him.
Yeah, that's what it looked like, Mike. Victim of circumstances, Robbie, but your team working very hard. Can you get back in the race?
Yeah, it's a huge bummer. I don't know. Probably should have came for tires there. You know, we were running 18th, and I don't know what Michael was doing, but he just ran us over.
Could you get back in the race?
Yeah, you know, getting back in the race is one thing, but to give up this many points again another weekend in a row, it's just it's devastation. And you know, our speedway car is not that fast, so I'm really concerned about that. But looking forward to having a new driver in the 55 next year.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And what he means by the point situation is each week the top 35 and owner points, they're locked into the show, and he's on the verge of falling outside the top 35.
He will fall to 35th this week, Larry, but he should still have that exemption from having to qualify on time, at least for next week. Here comes Kyle Busch. Krista.
Well, Mike, like I said, they took 2 tires only, but it wasn't really a great stop for the 18. Kyle asked, why did the jack man, that would be Jeff Bender, wait so long to drop the jack? So they looked at the tape, they analyzed it, they know it was not one of their better stops. It was a 2-tire stop and track bar adjustment. Kyle said his car is still just a little bit too tight.
Hey, once again, just watching Jeff Gordon work by Marcos Ambrose there. I mean, he's sitting up here in the top 5 right now, and boys, he had a great run this year so far.
In that 47
In the
car.
47
They
car.
get a lot of their bad luck behind them. I mean, they're solid week in and week out.
He is one of our Toyota top performers at this stage in the race. Marcus Ambrose in 4th. Brian Vickers in 10th. Ambrose has an interesting hobby there in rural North Carolina, panning for gold. John Reed made America's first gold discovery at a mine outside Charlotte 150 years ago. There's still some gold in them there hills.
And he's doing it on Greg Biffle's land. Greg, I guess, is digging a lake, and he's going through the dirt that Greg Biffle is digging out for this lake.
Well, he hopes to strike gold here as well.
I'm telling you, there's some desperation going on right now, guys. I'll tell you, if you get wounded a little bit like Kurt Busch is, the vultures will jump all over you. You should have seen what Tony Stewart just did to the 2 car going down into turn 1. Watch this, Mike, Larry. Racing with Jeff Burton in the 31. Here's Tony in the 14. They kind of leave a little gap right there.
Wow.
And he just shoots the gap.
That's not the first time that Tony Stewart has threaded the needle tonight.
Everybody knows that the sand's about out of the hourglass, boys. Got to go.
Yeah, I mean, we're down to about 130 laps to go.
Now, Jeff Burton is also a part of that battle, Matt.
And Scott Miller's crew chief said the car was pretty consistent in the earlier portion of this race. They went 2 tires. Reason, they saw what some of the other competitors did and also opted for some track position, knowing it really didn't cost them a lot. But right now, Burton's just trying to hold on as the 83 of Vickers going on the inside.
You know, we sat down and talked to Jeff Burton, the 3 of us did, and, you know, he told me, we know that we're a little bit off. And it's not going to be an overnight fix, but the good thing is we're acknowledging it and we're working hard to get there.
Time for another question from Ask.com, official search engine of NASCAR. What is the Phoenix? No, not Pontiac's first front-wheel drive compact that came out about 1980. The mythical Phoenix, the one that this city is named for. You can find out now at Ask.com and enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge for a chance to win daily prizes or a trip to Talladega.
You know, I think that's one I'm going to go to Ask.com and find out. I'd be curious to know.
I would go to Ask.com and say, why does the car out front always seem to run off and leave everybody? But I actually think I know the answer to that one.
Okay.
And that car right now would be Dale Earnhardt Jr. in that 88 car.
Or the car that was hung up back in 30-something place, pulling away from the field.
About to go a lap down.
What are they saying, Dick?
Well, all the changes that they made to Earnhardt's car have finally brought exactly what they were looking for. Speed, and the fact that he is at the front of the pack, he's got clean air. Earnhardt says that he's got tire chatter at both ends of the racetrack, and the crew came back and told him his lap times are better than anybody, and off he went.
There's that salesman again. Got to sell them. You may not like what you got, but you're better than everybody else.
All I know is you're pulling away from the field pretty sportily right now.
They're getting smaller behind you.
Imagine. Dale Earnhardt Jr. has a 4-second lead on Kyle Busch. Can it last?
You watch NASCAR on Fox.
Dale Earnhardt Jr.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. continues to lead Kyle Busch now by 3.8 seconds. Fans, we've got a new challenge for you. We're calling it NASCAR Know-It-All. Beginning Monday, log on to foxsports.com, keywords Know-It-All, and answer our questions about next week's race at Talladega. These are not trivia questions. They're not about things that happened in the past. You don't need to have been following NASCAR for a long time to play. But if you can predict some of the things that will happen in next week's race, we'll make you famous the following week in Richmond, and you'll have bragging rights all throughout NASCAR Nation. That's foxsports.com, keywords Know-It-All, beginning tomorrow. No, Larry, you're not allowed to play.
Okay, just wondering. I know what I know right now, and I will give good hints, though. You just got to watch the start of the race. I just know that 88 car has now pulled out to a 3 3/4 second lead over second place Kyle Busch in the 18 car.
But let's document who has tires and who does not. We know Earnhardt did not stop on the last caution.
Yeah, the guys that did not stop, like Dale Earnhardt Jr., like Jeff Gordon, like Marcos Ambrose, cars that are in the top 10, they had 10 more laps on their tires. Now, we know that Kyle Busch in the 18 car went with just 2 right side tires. But Tony Stewart, that 14 car right behind him, they were on pit road, and they got 4 tires just like the 5 car or Mark Martin that's running in 4th right now.
And on the clock, as we watch the lap times, those are the 2 fastest cars on the racetrack. Of course, they're way behind the leader.
But this plan is working out right now because when we interviewed Tony Eury Jr., what he said, we need a little bit of a long run here. That way, it would put everybody on an equal playing field if the caution comes out. And I think we're about there, that if we got a caution, everyone would take 4 tires.
So Dale Jr.'s car has gone from 0 to hero with the strategy and the change to nighttime. But Kurt Busch's car has gone the other way, Matt.
My combo platter of issues for Kurt Busch. First, he reported in after he hit the wall, it felt like something might be bent on the race car. And running back in traffic made the car even worse. Earlier in the race, he felt like the car was hitting the rev chip a little earlier. He asked what chip they had in it. They told him. They also told Kurt he could switch to the B box later in the race if he wanted because it had a little more RPMs. They told him what it has. They told him he could go to it now if he needed to, but he wanted to try to play a little more conservative. Wait till later in the race. Just ride right now and see what he can make for himself.
All right, he is riding in 6th.
Yeah, these cars have 2 ignition boxes, and the rev chip Matt's talking about is a little chip you just plug in that lets the engine kind of cut out at a certain RPM, and what they'll do is they'll put maybe a higher rev chip in one box and a lower in the other.
Tell you who's up on the chip right now is Tony Stewart, trying to fight his way past Kyle Busch for 2nd.
He's taking advantage of those 4 fresh tires now on into this run.
Got her down on the apron. Those left side tires get a lot of grip when you get down on that apron like that.
Next week, the fastest speedway on earth, Talladega, Alabama. Double yellow line at the bottom of the racetrack. No passing down there.
That's a no-no.
Not here.
And just remember, the last time we were at Talladega in the fall, Tony Stewart went to victory lane. His last win in that 20 car, Joe Gibbs Racing.
He went to victory lane, and the other car, Regan Smith, went below the yellow line.
That's right. 13th is where Ryan Newman's number 39 is, with Martin Truex and Denny Hamlin in a tight pack, 13th to 15th.
I think that's a nice job on the 39's part with all the issues he's had tonight, sitting there in 13th place.
16th, there's Carl Edwards. And let's go back up to 3rd place, where Mark Martin moves around the outside of Kyle Busch to put the number 5, our pole sitting car, back up to 3rd.
I think, like Tony Stewart, he's just taking advantage of those 4 fresh tires versus just the 2 fresh right sides on the 18 car.
That battle resolves itself. Let's get back to Carl Edwards, whose Subway Ford is back in 16th spot. Krista?
Yeah, Mike, and you heard Carl talk to Steve Burns at the start of this race about the pressure driving the Subway car in the Subway Fresh Fit 500. And right now, not so appetizing. His car is not doing very well. In fact, he had no grip at the start of the race. Then he said it drove like the front tires were locked up. Most recently, a tight condition in turn 3 and 4 had been slowing him down. Carl Edwards has never won a cup race here at Phoenix.
I think you could see his hands in there, and it kind of tells you that he doesn't have a lot of grip in that race car right now.
Carl's just got to keep that positive attitude that he has, because I'm telling you, just like last night, he was driving away from the field, had an engine problem. Could have won Texas. Comes in lead and goes out 11th, as we've said a dozen times. But that guy's got to keep his chin up, because it's easy to get down when things like that keep happening.
Dale Earnhardt Jr. has padded his lead. Tony Stewart, the new 2nd place car. The gap, 4 seconds. 108 laps to go.
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 on Fox is sponsored by Verizon Wireless. Get the inside track from Penske Racing and race analysis, plus highlights and high-speed action, all on VCast from Verizon Wireless, America's largest, most reliable wireless network.
In the Arizona desert, Tony Stewart is a romping and a stomping, and he has cut Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s lead from 4 down to 2.4 seconds. There's Stewart, and that red Chevrolet reeling Junior in.
Those 4 tires are really paying off, Mike, Larry.
Mark Martin in 3rd, and the Busch brothers, Kyle and Kurt, 4th and 5th.
Now, the thing about Dale Earnhardt Jr., who's leading this race, and I'll go back to Marcos Ambrose, who is in 10th. Remember, that's 2 cars that did not pit under that last caution. About 15 to 20 laps from now, they're going to have to make a green flag stop. If we do not get a caution, all the other cars will be able to go about 15 laps further than that.
Now just outside the top 5, Larry, David Rudiman 6th, Greg Biffle 7th. Here is Jeff Gordon in 8th. He's been as high as 3rd tonight. And it's time for our UPS Maximum driver, who is Jeff Gordon. April 2007. Jeff Gordon finally delivered a win at Phoenix in his 17th try. His 76th career win, which tied him for Dale Earnhardt for 6th on the all-time list. He saluted Earnhardt with that black number 3 flag in post-race. So, Darrell, what does Gordon have to do from 8th place right now if he wants to be the UPS Maximum driver tonight?
He doesn't have to do anything. His team, his crew, It's got to come from the pits. We've seen it all night long. But if they get him out front, he'll drive off and leave the field. So the strategy is going to be the difference. What does he do when he makes his next pit stop? How are these guys going to get him back out front where he's got clean air and he can drive off and leave everybody?
At the time, did you question Dale Earnhardt Jr.?
Hey, when you wait for a pit stop, you just tight everywhere, correct? Tight.
20 laps away.
And real loose off.
Did you question Junior and Junior's staying out on that last caution?
I just got to tell you, the way they are in the pits, I'd stay out all night if I could.
Dick Berggren on the leader.
Yeah, I think his tires are going away, Mike. On lap 192, he told the crew that the car was just a tick tight in the center, small change next time around. But by lap 212, he said that the car was getting really loose. Junior, a lot of wear on those tires.
Now, here's what's interesting. I don't anticipate that this race will go caution-free the rest of the way, but those guys that stayed out, those 10 laps, 10 to 12 laps, that could be the difference in everybody else that pitted the last caution only having to make one more pit stop, and these guys like Dale Earnhardt Jr. possibly having to make two. I know it was early in the race to start thinking about that, but just think how this race was won a year ago with Chad Knaus and Jimmy Johnson was strategy and a good game plan.
But the 24 just said about 20 laps, they're going to pit too, so he's not that far out of sync with these guys.
No, not at all, but no. I think Darrell is just right there on the cusp of being out of sync that they may have to make an extra stop at the end of the race should we not have a caution.
Well, Tony Stewart in second place is now taking big bites out of Junior's lead. It's down to 0.4 of a second, Steve. That's well within sight.
Mike, his last message to crew chief Darian Grubbs, short and sweet. I need a little more forward bite.
Doesn't need much because he has caught the leader.
I think everybody has been pleasantly surprised by the performance of this 14 car, especially Darian Grubb on the right and Tony Stewart on the left.
Yeah, definitely. We got a long day here.
That's the way to get yourself, guys. That's what we do.
Making no damn sense to me what we're doing today.
Bar was pretty good. We're just terrible on traffic.
A bar fight back there. Got wrecked by the 55.
And that was our cheese and bite of the race. We are 225 laps in, 87 laps to go, and our new leader is Tony Stewart. You saw how quickly he caught Dale Earnhardt Jr., and at lap 220, Stewart made the pass to make him the 6th different leader of tonight's race.
I think Junior's coming on pit road, guys.
This will be a scheduled pit stop because remember he stayed out on that last caution.
There was the lead change in the lower right. And Dick Berggren awaits Dale Jr. on pit road for a scheduled stop.
And Junior's on his way to the crew. They're going to fire 4 fresh tires at the car. Very minor adjustments to the car. They have got it right now. Junior stops in the dime. That's exactly where he's supposed to stop. Let's see the crew go to work. Remember, the tire changers are working together for the very first time on this team in the position that they have. So far, so good. A nice clean stop. There he goes.
14-second stop for Dale Jr.
I'll take those all night.
Absolutely.
No mistakes, 14 seconds.
Their strategy, staying out of the last caution, allowed Junior to lead 52 laps. We will have to wait and see if we cycle through a round of green flag pit stops to see if that strategy holds up.
Well, we need an A.J. Allmendinger to stay a little straighter with his car. We'll have another caution. But, yeah, Tony Eury Jr., Dale Earnhardt Jr., they're going to be holding their breath for about 15 laps because that's what it's going to take to cycle through green flag pit stops with cars like Tony Stewart in the 14, Mark Martin in the 5.
Say it won't be long until the 24, the 48, and some of those guys will be hitting pit road.
Probably another dozen laps or so. Scott Riggs was just on pit road, but he left missing a left rear lug nut. He'll be back on pit road.
He's coming down now for the drive-through.
Yeah, 2 of the most notable cars that I think we're going to anticipate will be on pit road shortly will be Jeff Gordon in the 24 car and Marcos Ambrose in the 47 car. Right now they're running 8th and 9th.
Kurt Busch is third. He is 3 seconds behind Tony Stewart and Mark Martin. David Rudiman is fourth, 4.3 seconds off the lead, and just about 1 second behind.
Nice and smooth now. Nice and smooth. Clear by 5.
Kurt Busch.
Rudiman's team, they just continue to impress me with the early runs they're having in the early part of this year. He has been consistent, runs well, gets good finishes, the top 12 in points, doing a great job.
Greg Biffle tracking him in 5th, and here's Kyle Busch in 6th. Kyle is 5.7 seconds back of the leader.
I think the nighttime plus a lot of adjustments have definitely helped this 18 car. They were way off when this race started, even after starting on the outside of the front row.
And for him to say after the last stop the car is a little off, that is so much better than what he was talking about his car in the first third of the race. Ambrose to pit road. He's going to give up 9th place. Steve?
Mike, on the last stop, they took 2 tires for track position. Not this time. They'll go with 4 tires. They're also making a wedge adjustment on that 47 for Marcus Ambrose.
Darrell, with this 47 car coming to pit road right here, should we stay green, that car possibly could make it to the end without stopping. I don't think the 88 car, Dale Earnhardt Jr. and that group could make it if we stay green.
I think we just see how big, you know, it depends on how it all shakes out, Larry. If the 88 got a big enough lead, he could do the Jimmy Johnson dance and back it down enough to possibly make it.
Boy, Mark Martin almost did the Bobby Labonte right there. Labonte's car. Oh, is that smoke from Stewart? Did he get against somebody or just have a little tire smoke in?
It may have just been brake smoke. You know, locked it up a little bit, got in hard. I don't see any right now.
Jeff Gordon is on pit road, and again, this is a scheduled green flag stop. First time we've had a round of green flag pit stops tonight. Dick?
And Jeff Gordon's pit crew has been flawless as well. He gave them credit for the big win that he had last weekend in Texas. Right now they're going to go to work on that car. Gordon's car has been very close all night. It has not been perfect. He has called for little adjustments, and right now they're making a big one in the back window of Jeff Gordon's car as this pit stop continues.
Well, they were running that track bar down.
They were getting serious.
Straight out, all the way to the cone now, all the way to the cone.
And you can see the trouble they had there on the right rear of 16.3 seconds. Remember, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was 14-second flat. 2.5 seconds on pit road's a lot on the racetrack.
You got that right. It's about the length of the back straightaway.
Bobby Labonte's in, Clint Boyer, Michael Waltrip, and here's Greg Biffle. Biffle pits out of 5th position. And Jeff Gordon is missing a lug nut. He'll have to come back in.
Yeah, they just black flagged him. You don't see that very often.
What did you answer Mike Joy that Jeff Gordon had to do to be the Maximus driver of the night?
Yeah, that's right.
It didn't quite work out, did it?
4 tires for Biffle. And 2 cans of Sunoco 98 octane unleaded.
You know, all of these guys that are making these pit stops, as we see Jeff Gordon coming back to pit road for that lug nut, they're going to have to hold their breath for about 8 to 12 more laps, and then I think we'll cycle all the way through. But I think anybody that makes a stop now, they can make it to the end without stopping.
Kevin Harvick is in. This is going to leave Jeff Gordon for the moment at least 2 laps down.
Yeah, this is pretty costly right here. This take a miracle at this point of the race to get 2 laps back.
And it's on the left front. And he's away.
About the only thing you can say about somebody like Jeff Gordon and others that are having trouble on pit road, it's redemption for a lot of crews because everybody's having problems.
I'll tell you what, the man that led the first part of this race, Mark Martin, in that 5 car, he wants to lead back from Tony Stewart in this 14.
I don't think Tony will put up a real big fight right now because he knows they got pit stops coming up. You'll see him slow down, probably let Mark get the outside line here, getting in the corner.
Tony is using that apron, though. There's a lot of grip down there. He had the whole car on the apron right there in turn 4.
Yeah, you see that all the time here. Just that apron.
All clear, man. Good job. Good
left
job.
side tires really get a lot of grip.
Kyle Busch coming in. And that Joe Gibbs Toyota. And Kyle is going to pit, let's see, out of 5th place. Krista?
What does Kyle Busch want? The same thing he's wanted all night, more turnability in the car. They've made track bar adjustments going up all night. That is the plan. Again, remember, they only took 2 tires on the last stop. You see the wrench in the back window, track bar adjustment at 4. Steve.
Matt Kenseth is in, and so is our leader, Steve.
Mike, Tony Stewart just said again, they're beating me on the forward bite. Darian Grubb said, we're going to hook you up. They made an air pressure adjustment. They're going to get 4 tires. They also took a windshield tear off to help Tony's vision. Left side tires going on for Tony Stewart, trying to win his first race as an owner.
Jeff Burton is in, so is Casey Mears as Stewart leaves. And here comes Joey Logano, Mark Martin, Kurt Busch, all onto pit road, along with Elliott Sadler. Denny Hamlin is in, so is Martin Truex. Dick.
Well, Alan Gustafson has just told Mark Martin's crew, nice and smooth. He didn't say nice and fast, nice and smooth. Mark brings it exactly where he's supposed to bring it.
Chassis adjustment already completed on the 2 car of Kurt Busch, and he is finally away. The 00 David Rudiman, they're waiting for him to make his stop. He's on his way down.
David Reagan, Reed Sorensen making their pit stops. All these are scheduled stops under green. Sam Hornish is in, and so is Ryan Newman. Matt.
And David Rudiman said he needed to turn better in the center of the corner. That's the biggest help that he needed. So his crew chief Childers is going to make a chassis adjustment, which is already completed. Stop going on. The changer coming around a little slower to the front than the one in the back. Waiting in the jack. As the lugs are going on, the 48 of Jimmy Johnson, he's on his way down to Chad Canals for his service as well for their final stop. What could be tonight.
Now Jimmy assumed the lead in under green flag pit stops, which now hands over to Brian Vickers. Only Johnson, Vickers, Carl Edwards, and Scott Speed and Montoya have not yet pitted.
Well, do you see all the brake dust that comes off that right front? That's hard on that changer. Then you got the tailpipe sticking out right here on the right side. That messes with the rear changer. I tell you, it's tough changing tires on these cars right now.
And even though the racetrack is well lit at night, especially on the left side, those left side tires are not lit. You're looking at a black wheel with a lot of black brake dust on it.
Brian Vickers will give up the lead. He is the 9th different driver to lead this race tonight, Krista.
On this run for the first time, Brian Vickers' car getting tight in the center. It's been loose all night. Pulling a spring rubber out was a possibility on this stop. They had made a track bar adjustment on the last run, but Brian Vickers has been very consistent, very solid tonight.
Montoya also pits, and that will cycle pit stops through. Scott Speed is a lap down. He's the only driver who has not yet pitted in this sequence, and the lead goes back to the 88 of Dale Earnhardt Jr.
And he's not as good as he was when he stayed out. You just see Regan Smith drive right around him. And Dale Jr.'s got, new tires now, so either he's trying to save a little fuel or the car's just not that good.
Well, they're breathing easy now because it's cycled through, but I think one thing they're not breathing easy about, they cannot make it to the end.
Brian Vickers will be back, and so will Montoya. They were both too fast entering pit road. So Earnhardt Jr. the leader, while Jeff Gordon is mired nearly 2 laps down. .51 laps to go here in Phoenix. Mark Martin ahead of Tony Stewart and Kurt Busch. Another question from Ask.com. How many people live in the Grand Canyon? I'm going to have to go to Ask.com and find out. I didn't think anybody lived in the Grand Canyon. While there, I guess I can enter the Ask.com NASCAR Challenge for a chance to win daily prizes or that trip to Talladega. Ask.com, official search engine of NASCAR.
Watching Mark Martin lead this race, I can only think about a year ago where he led lap 271 to lap 301, and then he had to pit for fuel because he couldn't make it to the end. He ended up finishing 5th, but we are confident. We've been told from the pits the 5 car is good to go on fuel.
And so is Tony Stewart in 2nd place. Matt, how about the Deuce? Kurt Busch in 3rd.
They feel they're good to go as well, Mike. And Kurt Busch told Pat Tryson a few laps ago, I just feel like we're one adjustment away from having the car exactly where I need. And then he hit the mic and said, and now I've got a vibration. That could be when I flat spotted the tires, possibly, because I had to check up for the 88 of Dale Jr. a little earlier.
Now, Dale Jr., we know, must make one more pit stop because he got off sequence. He will come to pit road at least once more before this one's over.
Well, based on what I'm seeing here, not only does he need a caution for fuel, he needs a caution to get another set of tires and some more adjustments because he's continuing to slide backwards. I think the only two cars that cannot make it to the end is Dale Earnhardt Jr. in the 88, who pitted with 86 laps to go, and Marcos Ambrose, who pitted with 81 laps to go. But just remember, in our FedEx Understanding the Race, only once in the last 4 spring races here have we had a caution within the last 70 laps of the race.
Yeah, we've only ever had one green-white checkered here. Well, that 88 is a handful again.
46 laps to go. And Junior now drops to 8th place.
And Larry, as a driver, I would be so frustrated because I was leading this race. I did not pit. All I did was came down pit road and you put 4 tires on me and now I can't drive my car. What is up with that?
Yeah, he's going to fall out of the top 10 here shortly because he just got kicked back to 8th and about to fall into the clutches shortly of Denny Hamlin in the 11 car.
We talked about Jeff Gordon having to come back for a lug nut, and he's now nearly 2 laps down. And now he's got a tire rub to boot.
Yeah, he got in the back of a car up here coming out of turn 4. I think it was the 36 car, and they made heavy contact, he and Riggs did. And I think it bent a fender on Jeff's car again.
Now Gordon, who you see just in front of Denny Hamlin, is in 30th position right now, but he would still retain the point lead going to Talladega.
This would be the second tire rub issue that he's had in this race. He had a left front issue earlier after contact with Denny Hamlin in the 11.
Kurt Busch would move up a spot in the standings based on where we are right now. That's the top 5, not including Clint Boyer, who would fall from 4th to 7th. As Boyer's had a rough night in an evil handling car. He is 27th a lap down.
Yeah, you know, speaking of Penske cars, man, Penske has done such a great job in this offseason reorganizing his teams. And you've got the 2-car Kurt Busch running 3rd right now. You drop down, and Sam Hornish is down there. He's running in 13th place and having a great night.
I always hold my breath in bragging on Sam, though, because it's almost like the minute I do. But what a great run for him. Remember, started back in the 35th position. He's kept that race car clean, and with 42 laps to go, we feel like that Sam Hornish is another car that can make it to the end. There he is inside the top 15.
And Larry's outrunning a lot of good cars. I mean, he's got Edwards behind him. He's got McMurray behind him. Casey Kane. There's a lot of cars that are good cars that are all behind him right now.
Riding with Casey Kane right now. He's in the 17th position.
Twelfth place.
Well, first debris down there, the flagman doesn't see it. He's turning around shaking his head, so I think we're all right there.
Jeff Burton, Sam Hornish. And just ahead of them, Marcus Ambrose, the 47 is 11th, and Martin Truex, the number 1, is 10th.
Yeah, NASCAR was taking a look at the start-finish line area. Thought they may have seen a little bit of debris, but I think they got the thumbs up from the flagman. Good to go.
And here comes Carl Edwards after Burton.
Larry, remember what you said about Sam?
But Carl Edwards in that 99 car, he's going to take advantage and get by Burton and Hornish. And now he's looking at Ambrose in the 47 car. That would be a battle for 11th.
Sam got to push it. He didn't really need.
39 laps to go.
I said Sam's kept his car clean. The right side's got a mark or two.
He laid her in the wall a couple times early in the race, but he's recovered nicely.
And I think we've said it. This is a telltale year for Sam Hornish Jr. If he's going to continue to stay in Racing Cup, they've got to step it up and perform this year, I think. Especially with the way that Kurt Busch and the 2 cars been running.
Let's have a look at Jeff Hammond's picks for today's AT&T Fastest Most Valuable Pit Crew. That of Tony Stewart, Greg Biffle, and Mark Martin are Jeff's picks. Don't forget to vote for the AT&T fastest and most valuable pit crew of the year from your AT&T phone. Text the pit crew's car number to 2258. So, Jeff, I'm guessing a combination of speed on pit road and, most importantly, no mistakes.
Yeah, Mike, that's really what I've been looking at. You take a look at the 5-car Mark Martin. I mean, they've been solid on pit road all night long. Greg Biffle, we've been bragging about how they've been gaining positions off of pit road all night long. And again, Tony Stewart's guys, they may be new to one another, but again, they've been solid. 14-second stops like Darrell and Larry and you guys have been talking about all night long. May not be the fastest, but again, they're not making any mistakes.
Jeff, let me ask you something. In your opinion, I mean, you've changed tires, you've been over the wall a lot in your career. What do these teams have to do to figure out this new lug stud and stop having the problems they're having? What do they got to do?
They've got to really, I think, change their mindset more than anything else, Darrell. That's all it is. They've got to go back to what we used to always preach. You slow down to go fast. If you understand what the rhythm needs to be to get everything good and tight, that's what you've got to practice. And I think the teams that do it on a regular basis, you know, 3 or 4 times a week, sooner or later, they're going to figure it out and realize I've got to make it up getting around the car and not with my hands like I used to do when I came to changing tires. It's got to be with your foot speed now, not with just your hands.
Well, you know, I mentioned earlier in the telecast, I keep going back 2 weeks ago at Texas, what Tony Stewart told his crew. I'd rather have 6 pit stops at 14 seconds than 2 at 12 and 4 at 18 seconds. That does me no good.
And Larry, one other thing, think about it right now. Jeff Gordon had a really good race car, and they beat themselves on pit road. They won it a week ago or 2 weeks ago in Texas, but tonight they took themselves out of the fight.
They absolutely did that.
One more thing real quick, Jeff. Do they still have the lug stud, the hub mounted on the back of the pit box where they can run some nuts in and out before they go across the wall?
Oh, yeah, they sure do, Darrell. I mean, they still have the same thing that they've been always working through, but I think it's more of a mental barrier than anything else. I mean, I think a lot of the guys are so used to how their hands are so much faster than what they need to be. Talking to some of the pit crew coaches, that's the one thing they try to preach to them is they've got to slow it down and give the extra revolutions as far as the stud's concerned, let the nut get good and tight, and then move on.
Let's take a look back outside the top 10. There is Marcus Ambrose in the 47, and he's back at 16th, battling Casey Kane and Casey Mears in the 07 for that slot.
I'm not so sure that Frankie Kerr has not slowed down Marcos Ambrose, because I think we've already noted that's one of the cars that's just a few laps shy from making it to the end. You'd be better off to give up a few positions and slow down than come to pit road and make a green flag stop.
I think everybody's fresh on their mind, even though it was a year ago, how Jimmy Johnson won this race a year ago. Chad had him backing off at the start-finish line and coasted because he had a nice lead. Trying to do that tonight is probably what some of these teams remember.
Nice run for Regan Smith as he battles Reed Sorensen for 19th. Let's move up to the race for 5th. Greg Biffle trying to hold off David Rudiman, but Rudiman has the preferred line, headed for turn 3 and makes the pass.
And I think Greg Biffle, he looks in his rearview mirror, he sees Jimmy Johnson in the 48 coming. He said, you know, I'm not going to push the envelope. David Rudiman caught me because he's faster than I am right now.
David Rudiman. Picked him up and put him in our truck 5 years ago, and look at him tonight. He's a Cup superstar.
Look at him all year long.
Yep. Well, Jimmy Johnson and Chad Knaus hit the right setup, but might it be too little too late? Johnson is at least on pace with the race leader, his teammate Mark Martin, but he's back in 6th place, 11 seconds back.
He's going to need what he didn't need a year ago. They're going to need a caution to get back in this thing as far as up there racing their teammate for the win.
Let's go back to 14th place. Jamie Mack had a practice brush with the wall, cost him a lot of practice time, but they managed to rebound, qualify 28th, and have moved up 14 positions to 14th.
You know, I think back to something Rick Hendrick said a year or so ago when he was talking about how many races Hendrick Motorsports was winning. He said, you know, we didn't win a lot of those races. A lot of them were given to us. And if you think back to the race he won here on fuel mileage last year, that was sort of like a gift. And tonight, I mean, they're not giving them anything. You got the 24 or 2 laps down, the 48s, and stuck back in 6th place. But Mark Martin is driving off from the rest of them.
I'd say so. A little over 4 seconds.
28 laps to go in the Arizona desert. Mark Martin, the pole sitter, trying to hang on for his first win in quite a while.
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 on Fox is sponsored by Subway, home of the famous $5 footlong. Subway, race hard, eat fresh. By Lipitor. By Lowe's, for all your home improvement needs. Lowe's, let's build something together. And by Sprint, NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile. It'll change the way you experience the race.
21 laps to go. Here is tonight's NASCAR Sprint Cup Mobile monster moment. The pass for the lead. Mark Martin against Dale Earnhardt Jr. And Martin has been in front since. He's led a total of 141 laps tonight. He has 20 to go to notch his first win since Kansas 2005, 97 races ago.
You know, I just think we need to set the stage on this Mark Martin deal. About 3 or 4 years ago, he basically announced retirement. We gave him a rocking chair for his retirement.
Did we get it back?
We did not get it back, but he came back and he ran another full season in the 6 car. The last 2 years, he's run a partial schedule, a very limited schedule. Turned 50 years old in January. He's come back now driving full-time for Hendrick Motorsports, but just think about how the season started. They had a bad pit call in the 500. Turned a top 5 car outside of the top 10. Blew engines at California and Las Vegas and blew a right rear tire at Atlanta. They were almost outside the top 35 in points after 4 races.
And there is a special bond between Mark Martin and his crew chief, Alan Gustafson. Matt?
Mike, Alan Gustafson grew up in Ormond Beach, Florida, about 10 minutes north of Daytona International Speedway. When he was 5 years old, he made his first trip to Daytona International Speedway with his brother, part of the Cub Scouts. That ignited a lifelong passion for auto racing. He would always go out to speed weeks. One of the drivers that he latched onto as his hero was Mark Martin. He had every die cast that Mark Martin ever produced, every hero card he had autographed, and he still has it in his personal collection at home. When Mark Martin signed on to drive the 5 car, Alan told me, I now have my childhood hero as my driver. Soon, hopefully, I take my childhood hero back to victory lane. He's closing in on that dream.
I'll tell you somebody else, Matt, it's a big fan of Mark Martin's, and that's Rick Hendrick. And Rick told me, he said, I wanted to put somebody in that 5 car, which that 5 car is Rick's first car, special car and a number for him. He said, I want to put somebody in that car, get out of it one time and say what a privilege it is to drive it. And he said, Mark Martin will do that.
That's the number he showed up with, Rick Hendrick, 25 years ago when he first started Hendrick Motorsports.
Mark has 35 wins in what is now the Sprint Cup Series, all driving Fords for Jack Roush.
Now you can see him putting his teammate a lap down, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and we still anticipate now with 15 laps to go, that 88 car is probably going to have to come to pit road for fuel.
You know, Mark's been second 5 times here.
And only twice has a Phoenix race been won from the pole. And only 3 drivers have ever won at NASCAR's top level past age 50.
You know who those 2 guys were that won from the pole? 2 of them were Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon, his teammates.
No pressure, 4 seconds back. 80 on you, 70 on him.
He's saying that Tony Stewart is a 1/10 of a second faster, but no problem. He's well back with 14 laps to go.
He's not going to catch you at a 1/10 a lap.
No.
And that's the only information Mark Martin needs right now. It's just let me know the interval as we're coming to 13 laps to go. That way I can kind of pick and choose where I go buy these lap cars. But I'm going to tell you what. Tony Stewart and that 14 car and Darian Grubb, I don't think we can continue to promote. What an awesome job. That was an operation that struggled so much last year, Haas CNC Racing, and here they are up there in the top 5 week after week with this car.
It makes the owner of that company look pretty smart, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Yes.
While we've been watching Mark Martin and Tony Stewart, the 2 brothers that started 2nd and 3rd, they are worked their way to 3rd and 4th. Kurt Busch in the 2 car, after having some problems with a fender rub, is 3rd. Kyle Busch, his brother, is 4th after starting with a car that wasn't very good.
No, and David Rudiman is in the top 5 again tonight, Larry, and I think that's going to help him in the points a good bit.
It's going to move him up 2 spots to 9th if he stays there, Darrell.
Yep. Oh, trouble down here, Dale Jr. and turn 4, guys.
And the caution is out with 12 laps to go.
Okay, Mr. Crew Chief.
For Junior, who's
Earn
led
your keep.
That is
63
not
laps
the
tonight.
caution that Alan Gustafson and Mark Martin wanted to see.
No. It erases a 4-second lead over Tony Stewart.
So now what do? You take 2, do you take 4, do you stay out?
Now let's show you what happened. Is the handling was going away on Dale Jr.'s car. This is 1 lap before the crash. And this is on board Dale Jr. Boy, did that car snap loose or contact? Was there contact?
I believe you'll see right here there was a little bit of contact. But
Casey Mears.
Junior had, I mean, he had his hands full without any help from anybody. That's been 2 cars tonight, a good car and a bad car.
Well, here come the hounds. They're hitting pit road.
Steve.
Mike, Tony Stewart has said the same thing. Just help my forward bite. They discussed 2 tires, but it looks like it's going to be 4 for Tony Stewart, Matt.
And Kurt Busch, driver of the Blue Deuce, said he just wants a slight air pressure change on the 2 car to Krista's. They go for 4 tires.
2 or 4 for Kyle. They waited until the last minute to make the call. It is 4 tires for Kyle. Dick.
This time Mark Martin's crew has got to be not only flawless but also fast. He has the best pit stall in the place. So far nobody has passed him. The stop almost done. There goes Gordon, but on the outside, the 18.
They had a little bit of a hiccup on the left front, and that
Couldn't-
was just enough to cost him. And it's like then he couldn't get the car
Couldn't
going.
get it quite going fast enough.
You can see right there, Steve Addington, Kyle Busch, that 18 crew, they're showing where they gained 2 positions.
Let's see how this looks at the line. I think Mark still got the lead.
Wow,
just
that's close.
enough.
Yeah.
About the length of that splitter.
Yep. But if that 18 car, Larry, if he restarts like I saw him restart last night, whoops, never mind.
It's a moot point now.
I thought when we saw
Cancel.
Kyle Busch squirt out from that group of cars that he might have been a little quick, and NASCAR, their version of photo radar, has ticketed Kyle Busch too fast exiting.
I think that's really good news for Mark Martin because that car is bad fast for about 5 laps.
And you got to believe when Kyle Busch sees that 5 car, he starts watering at the mouth because that's the car he started his career in.
That's right.
But we've got 17 cars on the lead lap. It will be a down finger restart, which means single file with lead lap cars only to the front of the pack.
The caution for Dale Earnhardt Jr., who is able to continue. Now watch the race off pit road, particularly watch the 18 as he tries to get past Stewart and everybody else in that last segment. Second to last segment is where Kyle Busch was over the speed limit.
One of the fiercest rivalries in all of sports. You have got to be kidding.
The greatest rivalry in the history of baseball, the Cardinals and the Cubs.
Here we go. Barrett, Tank, and A-Rod, as if this game needed any more emotion. The biggest comeback in postseason baseball history.
Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs, Cards. How about today? Bottom of the 11th, Aramis Ramirez walk-off home run to break the tie, give the Cubs the win. They go back at it next Saturday on Fox.
Well, I don't think this is going to be a race-winning move, and it was not by design, but Ryan Newman, the 39 car, is leading this race. He stayed out. Why? Because he couldn't hear the crew call him in. They can't communicate. Remember, Krista talked about their radio problems.
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, who's his boss?
Tony Stewart,
and
who would have been in second.
I got to think there might be some hanky-panky here.
Seeing those black helicopters.
Yeah, here we go. We'll see how it works out.
Krista?
Well, Mike, they were planning on pitting to take 2 tires. Then they said, was it the radio trouble? Down here with the crew, they said they think it was Ryan's call. He could not hear them, but he's been able to hear them all night. Remember, it's Ryan who can't talk. He has been able to hear the crew, so they were supposed to pit. They think Ryan made that call.
Well, he was 14th before the caution came out, and now he is the leader and will have a chance to win this if they restart with 6 laps to go.
I think it's a great move.
Why not?
I mean, he's going to probably finish better than if he had pitted.
Daryl, the biggest thing he's going to have to be careful. This place is notorious on old tires for spinning your tires on the restart on this front straightaway. He's got to make sure he's got those tires good and clean for this restart.
I tell you what, he's got to make sure of. Maybe there will be another quick caution.
A real quick.
You know, and maybe that'll happen more than once, and that might work out real good for him.
Well, maybe he better watch his mirror because it's going to be full of that 5 car on this restart.
Yeah, Mark's got to get him fast because he can't mess around. Tony Stewart's just as fast as Mark is.
But you know what? This right here, this is what Saturday night short track racing is all about.
You got that right.
But I don't see any team orders here. I see Ryan Newman trying to put himself in a position to win. And how better to do it than pull up behind the pace car?
Yeah, I don't see it. No, I don't see any team orders.
Let's find out. 6 laps to go. Ryan Newman in front for the first time tonight. Green flag.
Mark Martin looked to the inside. He's going to go to the high side, though, through 1 and 2. This will be no contest. Look at how he goes off turn 2. He yanks Tony Stewart by 5 car lengths.
Smooth, bud. Nice and smooth.
Mark knew he had to get by. He had to get going because he couldn't sit there and wait on Tony. Tony would eat him up if he did.
And right now, Ryan Newman, he can't get out of the way quick enough almost.
Maybe he won't finish better than if he'd have pitted, Larry. Not looking good.
That was a lot of laps on those tires.
Sure was. I like the gamble, though.
4th place. Jimmy Johnson has fought his way into the top 5. Wow. Trying to win 4 in a row.
That wasn't even rehearsed.
You know what? He's not that far back of the leader.
Nope. Another little quick caution here.
But 5 laps to go now.
This traffic jam back here. We could see a quick caution.
Boy, Kurt Busch in that 2, he had the rear bumper of that 11 car, Denny Hamlin, jacked off the ground. 4 to go.
Busch alongside Hamlin. You're watching from Hamlin's car. This is for 3rd. Tony Stewart dead even with Mark Martin at 0.7 of a second. That's the gap.
Boy, Tony's going to be so close.
You keep running like they're running, they're going to get their share of wins.
Well, we're going to Talladega next week, and I got to tell you, he'd be an odds-on favorite to win that race.
And here comes
this one isn't over with yet.
No, here comes Johnson. He just took 4th away from the 11 of Hamlin. Greg Biffle up for 5th.
That's 16 cars on the move. He's going to run out of laps to get there, but he is definitely on the move.
How about our buddy back there, Sam Hornish, top 10 tonight.
9th place.
Running 9th. 2 to go.
And Mark Martin playing catch me if you can.
Well, Mark started on the pole, and we knew that sooner, you know, he's had 3 poles this year. We knew he's going to win a race sooner or later. This is great. Hadn't won since 2005. New team, new driver. White flag in the air.
Nice and smooth. Nice and smooth. 1 more.
Like Mark needs to be told, nice and smooth. He's got a 1-second lead. He's got half a lap to go.
I'm going to tell you what, this is going to be a popular win with the fans and with the competitors. I can guarantee you that.
And I'm really happy for Rick Hendrick because this 5 car, it's been a while since it won a race, and Rick really is proud of this way that Got to send in Mark have. Good job, Mark.
Well, we had a battle for 3rd with Kurt Busch in that 2 and Jimmy Johnson, but Kurt Busch prevails.
I love driving y'all's car. Thank you. You're unbelievable, buddy. You are the man.
Becomes the oldest winner here at this race. Rusty Wallace had won this race, I think, in 90-something. He was 42 years old. Mark's 50.
Mark
from the
joins
pole.
A very exclusive club. Harry Gant, Morgan Shepherd, Bobby Allison, and now Mark Martin, the only drivers to pass their 50th birthday and win in NASCAR Sprint Cup competition.
You know what, Mike, you showed it a while ago, you know, 13th in the points after that dismal start. And all that matters, after 26 races, it doesn't matter how far behind the leader you are, just so you're in the top 12.
For me, boys. No burnouts for me.
No burnouts for the old guy.
And as for Ryan Newman, who was 14th when the caution came out, did not pit and restarted in the lead, 16th place at the checker. Mark Martin takes the checkered flag, and in tribute to a fellow he used to race against in the ASA and here in what's now the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, goes on what Alan Kulwicki described as the Polish victory lap. Welcome to the Lipitor post-race show as Mark Martin breaks a 97 race winless streak. He's in Phoenix Victory Lane. Matt Yoakum's there.
His crew chief, Alan Gubson, reached his lifelong dream to go to Victory Lane with his hero, Mark Martin. The first person he high-fives and hugs is Gubson and the crew. Mark, you rolled into Victory Lane, and you had a cell phone call from the boss. What Rick had to tell you about getting the 5 back to Victory Lane?
He just congratulated me, man. He makes dreams come true. You know, I sat and watched Tim Richmond win after he was sick, and this is as big a deal to me. It just means so much. And Arlene, thank you for letting me do it. CarQuest, Kellogg's, Sprint, all the folks that support this thing. Chevrolet, monster horsepower under the hood. There was enough gas in the tank. Thank you, thank you.
Fall 2005, the last time you went to Victory Lane, but then a late restart. You had Newman in front. You had your buddy Tony Stewart, who was at your open house a few weeks ago, behind you. It doesn't get any more dramatic than that. Walk us through.
Well, I knew Tony Stewart was good for a while when at the finish. I knew that, you know, I had the opportunity to lose it right there. And, you know, because Tony was going to throw anything. I mean, Tony raced me clean, but he raced me crazy, too, to get the win. So I knew I had to go. I went one way, and then that didn't work. So then I went the other, and I made it work. But we had the car. Thanks, guys.
And Mark Martin getting hugs and high fives from his former boss and old teammates from Roush Racing. Mike, what a special Victory Lane.
A great win for one of NASCAR's greatest ever competitors and maybe the best Sprint Cup driver who has never won the championship.
There's one word that describes Mark Martin, R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Yeah.
Respect.
And I think what you just saw there in Victory Lane, competitors, bosses that he used to drive for coming to congratulate him in Victory Lane. I think that absolutely supports what Darrell just said.
Been a long time coming. Let's have a look at battles to the flag and tempers flaring after the flag. Here's Kurt Busch, and here Jimmy Johnson came all the way up to battle for third at the flag.
Just about had it, but he lost it off turn 4. He's lucky he saved the car. Great recovery.
Then on the what's supposed to be the cool down lap, watch this as Dale Earnhardt Jr. turns Casey Mears around. And before they get to the garage area, here comes Mears back at him. Pow.
So evidently, now we kind of know who was involved back on lap 301.
Oh, yeah.
Evidently. I think we found the suspects.
Nice run for Sam Hornish, finishing 9th. Reed Sorensen, a top 12 finish. Casey Kane, his teammate, right behind him. Ambrose hung on for a top 15. A lot of good stories here.
And this is another reason why I like night racing. I mean, you couldn't have fireworks on the track and in the air unless it was a night race.
And you just look at the penalties late in the race that took people out of contention. Kyle Busch had a lug nut penalty, finished 17th. Brian Vickers speeding on pit road, finished 19th. And then also you've got Jeff Gordon, who had the lug nut issue, and Juan Pablo Montoya. Those were guys that maybe had top 10 runs. Penalties took them right out of it.
Oh, Sam Hornish hung in there. He got him a top 10. I was pretty proud of him. And Ruderman, he got him in 8th place.
Jimmy Johnson, Tony Stewart on the way in to congratulate the old man. Mark Martin at age 50 wins for the first time in 98 starts. We'll be back with more from Phoenix International Raceway. You are watching NASCAR on Fox on a very special night.
The Subway Fresh Fit 500 at 5'6", 5'7", Mark Martin standing tall in Victory Lane. His first win in 97 races. and Jeff Hammond, Chris Myers from the Hollywood Hotel. The celebration continuing. You were adamant in the pre-race show when I tried to have you pick a winner. You went with Mark Martin, the pole sitter, but he'd had the pole a couple other times this year. Why were you so sure he could hang on and win this one?
Well, the guy's finished second here 5 other times. I know how good he is on a racetrack like this. I mean, this is where Mark kind of like cut his teeth when he was growing up in the ASA series. So I feel like this type of racetrack is just kind of like his cup of tea. Alan Gustafson, he runs extremely well on these types of racetracks. He's won here before with Kyle Busch. So I think they're a great combination. Starting up front, this all kind of like was coming together, and tonight he did not disappoint me.
You talked about track position. He had it first 100 laps, had to battle back, get it, and then held on. Tony Stewart, his best finish of this year, 3rd straight top 5. Steve Burns is standing by, 2nd place. Tony.
Well, Tony, 3rd, 4th, and 2nd in consecutive weeks. You guys are so close to that first win. Talk about tonight's race.
I mean, you can't say you're unhappy running second, especially to Mark Martin. I mean, it's good to see him still kicking butt. You know, it makes this generation where everybody's supposed to retire a lot earlier seem the longevity seems a lot more realistic now. I mean, it just shows that a guy like him, I mean, he can kick our butts just like anybody else. But really proud of Darian Grubb and all the guys in this Office Depot Old Spice team. We're just chiseling away, man. It's like I can taste it. I know it's coming. It's just a matter of getting there. But you know, this is for Eugene and all the guys at Haas CNC. I mean, this is Haas Automation, all the Haas CNC Racing from last year. These guys welcomed us with open arms, and just proud of all these guys, proud of our fans that come here, and just awesome week, man. Couldn't be happier.
See you next week. Good luck.
Thanks.
Nobody drives harder than Kurt Busch. Started 3rd, finished 3rd in his 300th start. How did you manage to do so well after bouncing the thing off the wall?
Yeah, that was a mistake I made. I thought for 1 second, don't do it. I thought for another second, keep these guys behind you because track position's important. 3rd time I thought about it, I was in the fence. Just too many choices and didn't make the right decision. But my crew held me in there all night long, gave me great pit stops. I felt like a 3rd place effort tonight was like a win because Mark Martin was stout, Tony Stewart was strong midway through the race. So great job for Miller Lite Dodge and everybody with Mobil 1, Lennox, PPG, and Snap-on. It feels good. Right now we're running pretty good.
Indeed, a great team effort for Kurt Busch and his gang.
Well, Jimmie Johnson came up a little bit short in his bid for 4 straight, but one of the first things you said was how excited you were about your teammates' win.
I am. I'm very, very happy for that entire 5 team. Rick, that number means so much to he and his family. And to have that car in victory lane. I know the toughest part right now is that Rick's at home. He's not here, and it's going to be awfully tough on him watching this from the couch. So, boss, we miss you. I wish you were here to have some champagne sprayed on you. But those guys have been working hard, and Mark wasn't mad yesterday in our debrief, so we all knew we were in trouble at that point.
Well, it wasn't a 4-pack for Jimmie Johnson, but a 4th still feels pretty good.
Thanks, Krista and Jimmy. And Hendrick Motorsports, 5 straight wins here in Phoenix as we check the unofficial results. Mark Martin, his first win other than in a Roush car. You saw Jack Roush come over and congratulate him.
It's great right now. We're looking at the unofficial results.
Carl Edwards 10th, which he was not in the
fought back
picture.
to 10th, and there's his teammate Jamie Murray struggled on that line. But how about Reed Sorensen? Great finish right there for Richard Petty Motorsports, followed by his teammate Casey Keynes. Marcos Ambrose continues to have good solid runs right there. Joey Logano, 1 lap down, a Rookie of the Year contender. Not a bad run for him. They got better as the race went on.
Mark Martin led more laps tonight than all of last year, 157. But Dale Earnhardt Jr., as you take a look, wound up 31st. He led 63 laps, tied for 2nd most, and had some bad luck, and then you saw the frustration later with the wreck.
Yeah, he got turned around right there. He had a bad set of tires. But how about his teammate Jeff Gordon? Had a great race car, leading the points and everything like that, and then turns right around, has a mistake on pit road that winds up costing him, puts him way back in the field, winds up 24th or 25th in the 24 car. So, those kind of things you've got to eliminate. We saw some good racing and some good calls. We saw some bad situations. It turned out as far as the racetrack itself is concerned, but pit road, again, continues to plague a lot of teams.
You saw Mike Heltner and, Mark Martin at age 50. 50's the new number 1 in the 5 car for winning here. I mean, he's retired, he's unretired. I think Rick Hendrick even wanted an answer at some point. Hey, you're going to run full-time next year, and maybe this is a chance to win a championship. Maybe Mark is reinvigorated.
It may be a good time to ask him right now coming out of victory lane tonight. He'd probably get a yes out of him a lot easier.
And let's check the points now. We're through 8 of 36 races, 18 until the chase begins. So Jeff Gordon, you just talked about. Jimmie Johnson, they remain 1-2. There's Kurt Busch. And as we go further down the order, Matt Kenseth at 12, and close to that 12 spot is Mark Martin, 9 points out of that spot, as you see, and that's the key to get into the top 12. The extended pre-race show, an hour pre-race show, 1 o'clock Eastern from Talladega. By the way, you can't help but think Mark Martin, age 50, third oldest winner ever. Bobby Allison, who won the Daytona 500 in '88. Remember, it was Allison who suggested to Jack Roush, hey, give that young Martin guy a ride in his place back then.
And it really proved to be really the right decision.
Coming up, late local news for most of you tonight on Fox. And don't forget, next Saturday, Major League Baseball, and then Sunday, Talladega, the super speedway, the longest track on the circuit. Kyle Busch trying to defend his title. And again, the pre-race show with plenty of time to take a look at how that race will unfold.
You better nail down the recliner next week, baby. We're going to Talladega. We're going to be running wide open. I'm telling you, it's going to be fast.
For Jeff Hammond, I'm Chris Myers. For our entire crew, thanks for being a part of NASCAR on Fox.
Love it when it's forward, love it when it's fast, love it when the leaders caught the pack is moving past, love it when they're making lots and lots of noise, can't wait to hear the W say. Boogity, 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 let's go racing, boys! Let's go racing, boys. NASCAR racing, boys.
Promotional considerations provided by